Hello, and welcome to the Armchair Expert. I'm Dax Shepard. Today, I get a chance to thank the person who started my career, Ashton Kutcher. We've known each other for about 15 years now, and I can say he has been endlessly generous to me over that time. And it was really, really nice to thank him face to face. But in retrospect, if I'm being dead honest, after he left, it occurred to me I stopped short of what I should have really said. As you will hear shortly, Punk'd was the biggest break of my professional life, and I've never been so excited to get a job. It was very successful, and I should have felt nothing but gratitude for that experience. But, as happens with me, my ego complicated and tainted that experience almost immediately. And I was able to admit that to him during the conversation, but I realized after he left that I really owed him an apology for that. I can only assume that as I was trying to distance myself from the show, it must have felt like I was also trying to distance myself from him, which is terrible because he could not have possibly been more supportive or quicker to share credit with me. He was a mentor and an ally, and I deeply regret if it ever felt like I was trying to distance myself from him. I should have said that to him. Maybe I still will. But at any rate, I really enjoyed combing through our shared history together, and I applaud his candor and humility. Please enjoy my old friend, star of The Ranch on Netflix, Ashton Kutcher.
He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert.
Ashton, thank you so much for coming and doing my podcast. But it's but one of many generous things you've done for me.
I actually feel like it's completely the other way.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, great. I can't wait to hear because I'm excited to publicly thank you because I don't know that you recognize just how fucking long I had been auditioning for tampon commercials and this and that when I got punked. I mean, I was almost 10 years in LA trying to make a paycheck acting, and it just wasn't happening. And then I got punked, and I've worked mostly ever since. And I
think clearly
I was getting close to the end.
I think there were a lot of casting people that weren't recognizing your brilliance because
yes.
It was fairly obvious to me from moment one. And I also think that I think the fact that Punk'd was pure improv, I think played into every one of your sort of innate skill sets from the get-go.
Well, 100%. I remember driving to the audition in Santa Monica, and I live very close. And I remember driving there thinking, okay, you've auditioned for a lot of things now over the last 9 years. You've not gotten any of them. If you can't get this show where really the prerequisite skill set is A, you can improv, and B, you're not afraid if shit goes sideways. Like if someone punches you, you're open to that. And I thought, if I can't get a job that's the two skill sets, I got to give up because that was the recipe I had going at that moment in life.
You had all of your groundlings training relative to improv, and that was clear from get-go one. And two, you had nobody was as fearless as you on that show. And I think every single season that we cast after you were basically burnt from being able to do more because when you showed up, people thought it was going down.
Yeah. And even in real life.
But I think for every single season that we had from that point on, we were like, all right, we have to find our Dax. We have to find our Dax from every single casting session that we did. Because that fearlessness drove all the gold, and the fact that as it was really the first time I was, somewhat directing. I was kind of co-directing it, but I knew as long as you were on the floor that we could recover anything that went sideways, and that we could push it further than we push it with other people because of your fearlessness, but also because you had the ability to continue to escalate, but then defuse and then escalate again and then defuse in a way that few people after you or before you did.
Well, another thing, just childhood training, being a middle child, I grew up with my brother was a teenager and he was insane. And then and my sister was a baby and she was cuckoo. So I think it was the perfect thing for me to land in. But I don't know that you'll ever really understand my experience of going in there, auditioning, meeting you, going to do the pilot. Again, 9 years of trying, nothing. And then we finished shooting the pilot in Las Vegas. You take me to Endeavor. At that time, I don't know if you remember this, but my agent was so low end that she went out of business while we were shooting the pilot. So the check, when it got sent to a boarded up building in Venice, and I never even got paid because my agent had gone out of business. But you took me to Endeavor, and you basically told Greg Siegel, who was our agent for years, you've got to sign this guy right now. And then you took me to a Lakers game, and you introduced me to Marcy Carsey was at the Lakers game. Like, I remember all this stuff so vividly because I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Santa Monica. And all of a sudden I was at a Lakers game with you, and it was terribly exciting. I have to tell you, I was it was a very romantic.
I remember.
I was starstruck.
I remembered the agency piece. I remember going in the agency and being quite certain that you had.
They needed me on the team.
No, that, but also that you had a lot of upward potential, and that with the right representation, you would get that. And I don't remember the Lakers game.
Okay, sure. Why would you?
I'm sure
you went all the time.
I'm sure it was really fun.
That was my.
Well, they had those Endeavor seats. Did we sit in the courtside Endeavors?
We didn't.
Okay.
Those are incredible.
Yeah,
I have sat at those.
Those are power seats.
I think I told you maybe the highlight of my life was we were sitting there, and then the agent who took me let me actually sit, because these seats start right where the Lakers bench ends.
Yeah, so you can actually talk to the players and taunt them and do all kinds of terrible things.
There was a moment where I felt like I am on this team. They may tell me to get in there and play deep. And there was the moment I just couldn't believe happened was Kobe had he called a timeout, and then he came back to the bench and he was like yelling at guys, telling Derek Fisher, you gotta get a team, you gotta blah blah blah. And then he just looks at me and he goes, oh damn, you a funny motherfucker. And then gave me one of those tap hugs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he then went back to yelling at everyone. And I looked at Siegel and I'm like, I'm a fucking Laker. I am on the Los Angeles Lakers.
You're a legend.
It was incredible.
I got in a fight with Gary Payton in the middle of a game once.
Really?
When he was playing for the Seattle Supersonics, and they were playing, and I was heckling him so hard from those seats.
The glove.
And he turned and he just looks at me and he's just like, eat your fucking hot dog.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I got in his head.
And it was Payton and Sean Kemp was his right-hand man, right? At the
I think it was post Kemp.
Oh, because I wouldn't want Kemp.
I don't think I would mess with Kemp.
No, the glove, I'd be like, all right, I'm not going to die in this fight. I'm not saying I'm going to win, but I'm not going to die. But Kemp, I'd be nervous I'd go down.
Those were some good seats.
Yeah, but you took me to the game, and I think it's also relevant to say that at that time in my life, I had this weird version of sobriety, if you remember, where I didn't drink because I had recognized I had a drinking problem, but I still did drugs. You remember that?
I don't think I knew.
Because I remember you and I were standing in line at the Lakers game.
I knew that you were taking some Vicodin.
Sure.
But
recreational
Vicodin.
Yeah.
But I don't think I was so.
You're weirdly naive about drugs, which is probably why you're still here.
I'm super naive about when I got to Los Angeles. When I was in high school and college, I smoked weed some. And did some mushrooms and tried acid and did some various things that were, expansive for me at the time.
Sure.
But when I got
spiritually,
I got put in jail when I was 18, and then I was on probation, and
you broke into your high school.
I broke into my high school, and I had third-degree burglary charges that I got deferred judgment on, and then got them dropped.
Right. Oh, you did?
Yeah, so I can still buy firearms and vote, which is nice.
Okay, great.
And run for office if need be. But I'm sure if I ever did, someone would bring that up and say I was not.
Well, that's why you're getting out ahead of it right now.
Yeah, that's right. Just lay it out there.
I always thought Colin Farrell was the master of that. Like, other people would be getting busted in the trades because they got caught with weed or whatever. And I remember reading a Playboy interview with him, and they said, "Do you do drugs?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, this weekend I did ecstasy and cocaine." Blah blah blah. I was like, "Oh my god, that's what you do. You just say I do everything, and then there's no story."
So I did a ton of that fun stuff when I was young, and then when I was on probation, I went to college. I was like, I'm done. I'm done. And I think I smoked weed one time while I was in college, and then after I dropped out and moved to Los Angeles. Danny Masterson on my show was
very anti-drugs.
Very anti-drugs.
Yes.
All Scientologists that I know are super, super anti-drugs.
Yeah.
And so
pro cigarettes and booze, but anti.
Yes. And so his big thing to the whole cast on 70s, he was like kind of my mentor when I got my big brother when I got here.
Because he had done a ton of stuff, right? Like he had been acting
working
since he was a kid.
4, right?
Yeah.
So, and he was like, nobody on this set is doing drugs. That's it. Like that. And if you were at a party and someone was there he would kick them out. Like, he was that vigilant about it.
Yes.
And I was like,
well, because I believe too is the theory behind it, as I understand it, is from the Scientology perspective, is people on drugs make your environment dangerous. Right?
Yes.
Okay, so I can understand the logic.
And there are
it.
certain drugs that are stored in your fat cells, which then ultimately long term have effects. Yeah. I don't know.
Who cares?
I don't know if it's.
We're not here to say whether that's true or not.
Right. There's some bending of accuracy.
Suffice to say, your mentor took a hard line on drugs,
and so I didn't do drugs.
Yeah.
I drank like a fish.
Can I tell you really one funny thing? Because during this whole period where you were taking me under your wing and introducing me to your friendship circle, I ended up in a car one night with Danny. And we were driving, and he goes, "You don't drink, huh?" And I go, "No, I don't drink, but I do drugs." And then he gave me quite a long-winded lecture about it. But he was also driving the car hammered. I think the statute of limitations this was 15 years ago. I think I can say this now. He was hammered driving the car, and I thought, well, a little ironic. Yeah, but it's great.
Any which way, yeah. So I had entered into a pretty long run of sobriety from drugs, and I didn't really drink that much. Like if we went out on the weekends or something, I would drink. Yeah. But like I always kind of had like a school night rule. Like if I had work the next day, I wasn't really gonna. Yeah. And I bent it a couple times here and there, but for the most part, I really had like a relatively sober living going on. And so therefore, I was kind of blind. Like somebody could be on blow like in front. I wouldn't know.
Yeah,
right?
You didn't know the signs to look for.
Right. I wouldn't know a drug addict. And then
you and my friend Nate Tuck are the most frustrating type of drinker, because I'm not actually jealous of the guy who drinks one drink. I don't want to be that guy. Who gives a fuck about having one drink? But
what's one drink doing for you?
Why even do it? Why even do it? That would just make me agitated. And Nate's the same way. So you have this relationship with booze where you can get fucked up. You'll go for it. And then it's just not a problem.
Yeah.
It's so great. Like you certainly partied.
Yeah,
but
sure.
But you could turn it off, and then you wouldn't do it for 5 days and not even think about it. And from my perspective,
I also have a relatively high tolerance for alcohol, so I can have 3-4 drinks and
get on a motorcycle and just put some road behind you.
I probably wouldn't do that, but I can have 3 or 4 drinks and not have any sort of outward signs of
belligerence.
Yes.
I've never seen you hammered, and we've certainly drank.
I've gotten hammered, but then I do like silly things. Like I'm doing sober January right now, where I'm just not going to drink because I'm like I just sort of just want to clear out the system. And
sure.
Also, you want to reset the tolerance so that you don't have to drink so much.
Yes. It's good to reset.
Yeah. So I'm currently on day 2 of sober January.
So you're on day 3, I think. Or did you drink on New Year's Day?
New Year's Day, Mila's father, Mila's whole family is very Russian, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so when you do New Year's with them, if I don't drink with her father on New Year's, it would be like disrespectful to him.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I did 3 shots of Armenian brandy.
Really?
Yeah,
not vodka.
No, they shoot cognac or brandy.
Okay.
Or vodka.
Okay.
But at big celebrations, it goes cognac. And so I did 3 shots of cognac at dinner on the first. But so you're day 2. I'm day 2.
Yeah, I'm day 3 right now. No Diet Coke. Back off that.
Nice.
No dip. I had a small foray into dipping this year.
It happens.
After 8 years off.
It happens.
And what's another one? I'm off of a third thing. I'm off of Diet Coke, dip, and sugar.
Oh, yeah, sugar.
Yeah.
That's a big
Have you ever done that?
I've gone. So right after I got divorced, I went to the mountains for a week by myself.
San Gabriel's?
No, I went into Big Sky in Montana.
Can you imagine if you went to the San Gabriels? You never really hear about anyone retreating to the San Gabriels.
And I did no food no drink, just water and tea. And no, I took all my computers away, my phone, my everything. I was there by myself, so there was no talking, and I just had a notepad and a pen and water and tea for a week.
For a week.
Yeah, and that was.
I would imagine the first 2 days are insufferable, and then you kind of.
I started to
level
hallucinate on like day 2, which was fantastic. It was like pretty wonderful.
Wow.
And God, I was like doing Tai Chi with, my own energy. I don't know.
Sure.
I mean, if
Making
somebody
it
was
up as you
recording
go.
and I wrote.
You don't have any formal training in Tai Chi, do you?
No.
No, right.
No,
Okay,
I was
didn't
just
think
doing.
so.
I was just doing it, doing what came to me.
Sure.
And then I wrote down every single relationship that I had where I felt like there was like some grudge or some anything, regret, anything. And then I wrote letters to every single person and sent the letter. On day 7, I typed them all out and then sent them. I hand wrote them all and then typed them up and sent
And
them
mostly taking responsibility for your shortcomings in those relationships?
Just kind of. It was
or just telling them, you know what, I still think you're an asshole. I just want to reach out.
It was like an AA exercise. Where I was like, I probably have like done some damage and some. And so I just cleared palate. But that was 7 days of no anything. Was really spiritual and kind of awesome. But I would probably find some way to get some nutrients into my body.
Well, what's interesting to me about when you do break up with someone and you've been with them for a while. So I was with Bree for 9 years, and you knew Bree because I was with her during the whole punk era. When we broke up, the first 6 months, I had a laundry list of things she had done to cause this separation. I had like 18 things I thought she had done wrong. And then over the years, those have all just kind of gone away. And all I'm left with was all the things I did wrong. And those became really easy to see once I wasn't thinking about the things she did wrong.
Yeah.
And I have, because I am an AA and I have to, make amends all the time. I have over the last 12 years, I'll call her like once every 6 months and go, man, I gotta say, I'm also saying, and she has said on numerous occasions, we are good. I have a great memory of you. You don't need to apologize any further. I'm like, no, I need to, because I'm thinking about it as I fall asleep. Like, God, that was pretty shitty too.
I'm sure I probably have more things now if I really sat down and like laundry listed again. And I should probably do that sometime soon.
Yeah. When you go to bed, do you kind of go through things you kind of regret? Do you take like a mini inventory?
I don't really.
Do you fall right asleep? Let me start there.
I fall asleep super easy.
Okay. I'm very envious of that.
I usually have like a 15-minute window before I hit the bed, and then it's done.
Wow.
And if not, I'll wake up and make a list because usually it's because I'm ruminating on something.
Sure.
And what I do is I just immediately turn whatever it is that I can't stop thinking about. I just turn it into an executable list of how to actually take care of it. And then the next day I just jump on it first thing. Right.
I'm every single night about 45 minutes of just thinking. It's never productive either. The things I will wake up at 3 a.m, like this happened to me over Christmas. We went and saw my mom in Portland or in Hood River, Oregon. She has a dog. This dog was clearly killing me. I'm so allergic to this dog. And it's 20 degrees outside, so everything's sealed shut. And I just sat in this house for 8 days dying. And I was like sprung awake at 3 a.m. thinking, oh my God, my stepfather's dying. And I've told her to come live in our house and she's going to bring this fucking dog. And I've just signed my own death warrant. And this at 3 a.m. is an insurmountable problem in my life. I will never be able to figure out how to keep the dog out of my living space at 3 a.m.
Can you build a doghouse?
Well, there's so many solutions. That's my point. Right. But at 3 a.m, this cannot be fixed. I have to take my mom in, and yet I'm going to die because of this dog. And that's my 3 a.m. thinking.
I don't have those types of flows.
That's great. Do you listen to a bunch of podcasts?
I listen to I listen to Tim Ferriss, which I think is really interesting. This sort of cult around stoicism that he's building. I think it's like fascinating. Like I think he's like in some ways building a modern day cult, which I think is wonderful. And and some of it's viable and some of it's valuable. And some.
Do you listen to Sam Harris?
I don't listen to Sam Harris.
So I'm addicted to him, and he's a neurologist by training, and he has always a ton of doctors on, and they're always talking about your brain chemistry and how much, he actually doesn't believe in free will. I won't go that far, but he just talks about what a slave you are to your biochemistry, and you just can't get around it. And the more I hear him talk about it, I just think, fuck, man, you hit the lottery. You're either born with great chemistry for this or that, or it's so for you go to bed at night and you go to sleep. That's not through any effort of yours during the day.
Have you read The Gene?
The Gene.
Yeah.
No. I've read The Selfish Gene.
There's a great book called The Gene where the guy basically breaks down nature versus nurture.
Yes.
And what it ultimately amounts to is nature and nurture.
Yes.
It's both. And
but at best they say it's 50-50.
But you can switch genes, right? Like you can actually turn them on, turn them off. Like like environmental stimuli actually have the capacity to turn on and turn off genes to some degree.
Some of them, right?
Some of them based on this book. I'm usually so exhausted by the time I get into bed that it's just over. It's like it's literally like the batteries are empty. Yeah.
But Belle's the same way. And even if she hasn't done anything exhausting, like she hits the pillow and she's out. That's it. It's a wrap on her. She has seen me fall asleep maybe twice in the last 11 years.
But do you introduce any kind of stimulants in the bedroom? Let
me tell you my ritual when I go to sleep. I brew a pot of coffee and I open up a fresh can of dip and then I get on my screen. I get that blue light just blasting into my eyes. No, I have an absurd ritual. And I think if I had to enter the dating world at this point.
That's not your ritual.
I'm about to tell you my ritual.
What is your ritual?
But I'm just prefacing it by saying that it has occurred to me that if I had to date at this point in life, no one would ever date me because of your ritual. Yes, because of my ritual. I think I asked Tom Arnold this one time when Tom Arnold gotten divorced and I knew he had a CPAP machine, right? And so he's got this humongous machine he has to use to go to sleep, and he had entered the dating world. And I said, how the fuck are you telling these girls that you're going to date with? Like, yes, I'll spend the night. Hold on, I got to go grab my gigantic machine out of my trunk and hook myself up to it in your bed. It must be so hard. But yeah, so I do a liquid melatonin shot, right? And unfortunately, most nights I have to also take an Advil PM or an Aleve PM. And then I have to listen to a book on tape, but it has to be something very dense and historic so that it's so boring that it will put me to sleep. So I have to hook myself up, and turn on the phone. And then I got to scrub back because last night I fell asleep at some point while it was on, and I got to find that place. It is ridiculous.
Occasionally, if I'm not ready to go to sleep, but Mila's ready to go to sleep, we'll go to bed, and then we turn the TV on for a little while, and then she'll fall asleep during a TV show, but then I can't leave the volume up because that wakes her up. So then I'll put in a book on tape and listen to it and fall asleep. And so I've experienced the rewind, the audible, try to find the key.
Yes, it's very hard. But luckily now they've added to my thing that I use, you can at least set the timer. So I set it for an hour, and I'd say 80% of the nights I'm asleep before it turns off. Right. So whatever. I thought this
horrible.
No, it beats certainly what I was doing 4 years ago.
I have a friend who's single, but now newly in a relationship that doesn't allow his girlfriend to sleep in the same bed with him.
Really?
Because she wakes him up. He's a really light sleeper, and he has to pee apparently 4 times at night.
Is this guy's name Dax Shepard? Because you just described.
But he sleeps in his own room. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, but I mean, it's
there's nothing wrong with anything. Really, if you want to sleep on the roof of your house, great. But how does the girl feel?
I don't know.
Or the woman?
I don't know how she feels. Apparently, she was
again another thing to break, another weird thing to break out on the third date.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'd love for you to spend the night, but you'll
here's
be
your room.
Yeah.
I would say that sleep is probably one of the most important things.
I couldn't agree more
in the world, and finding whatever you have to do to make that happen.
I'm neurotic about it. I got to get 8 hours. And then because you and I both have young kids, I would say, and I was going to observe this about you.
But you guys don't have monitors in your room.
We don't have monitors. Fuck that.
That's amazing.
I really will say I do 50% of the shit with these kids. I definitely changed more than my share of diapers, and I've exceeded what I think my father certainly did. But the one thing that now has evolved, and I thank her so much for this, is and this took us a few years to figure out, she now gets up with the kids because I'll get up with them, but then I'm up for another 40 minutes. She can get up and then come back to sleep and she's out in 30 seconds. And then we just realized I just can't do it because I'll be up all night long. You know, who gets up between you and Mila?
We both get up every morning.
Well, I'm talking about in the middle of the night if something goes haywire.
Middle of the night, but we flipped it back and forth.
Yeah, you take turns.
Because she was breastfeeding the kids, she did way more than her share.
Yes.
I would say probably like 80-20 because she could go and breastfeed them and put them back down when they were little. I mean, now they don't wake up at night, which is good. But during that period of time, she probably took on 80% of that.
Yeah. But, you know, and people don't plan well because I would be like when I was on Parenthood, there were a bunch of people on that show who had young kids too. And what shocked me is that our approach to it, Kristen and I's, and this was back when the kids were breastfeeding, was I would do the late night feeding and I would do it with a bottle. And then she would do early morning so that at least we were both getting 8 hours, you know, just in 2 different slots.
Yeah. I don't know that our kids slept pretty well. We got this thing for kid number 1. There was a lot of those like crazy weird nights, like because you don't know how to plan because you've never done it before, so you have no idea.
Yeah.
Kid number 2, we got one of those snooze. Have you heard of this thing?
No.
It's an oscillating bed.
You should disclose if you have an interest.
I don't have an
company.
interest. I have no interest. So the guy who wrote Happiest Baby on the Block.
Oh yeah,
the shushing, the 5 S's.
Yeah.
Right?
The 5 S's: swaying, swaddling, shushing, sucking.
There you go.
And a fifth.
And whatever. Yeah. So this guy shaking. No.
Violently shaking.
Violently oscillating. So this guy.
It's 4 S's and then a VS.
So this guy invented this bed that does the S's, right?
Oh,
so
really?
It's got a natural swaddle and it's got a sensor in it. And so the louder the kid cries, the faster it goes.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
And it puts the kid back to sleep. It's unbelievable.
Right. Yeah.
Trust me on this.
Yeah.
So for
great.
our second kid, he slept 6 hours a night.
16 hours a day.
He slept 6 hours a night on like night 3, and it was done.
Oh,
like,
wow.
And he would just think if he wake up and he'd be, and then it would just start going really, really slowly.
What a
And
product.
then you put him back down. And if you start crying loud, and at a certain point, you know, you take him out because you're like, okay, this isn't happening.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was like a 6 hour a night sleeper really
Right out of the
early,
gates.
and I'm eternally grateful to the snoo for that.
I give very few gifts to people when they are expecting, and that is one thing I get people. Happiest Baby on the Block, always.
Yeah,
He has a really funny name too, Dr.
Harvey Karp.
Harvey Karp.
Yeah,
Karp.
so Happiest Baby on the Block, and the other one I do is a Sleep Easy solution, which is how to sleep train your kids. Because
Yes, we were militant that way as well.
I think some people just fail on that one
They
hard.
do,
And,
yeah. And they're the only ones that pay the price. That's what's funny.
Yeah, and once you nail that, everything else is manageable.
Yeah. It's hard not to be judgmental when you're a parent. You have friends who like their kids a year and a half and they still don't sleep through the night.
Yeah, you're like,
come on.
Really?
But I want to get back to the moment that we started becoming friends and hanging out because it was such a fun period for me. And it really was like a light switch because I went again from 9 years of obscurity to doing Punk'd. And then immediately I got to start doing movies, right? And this really interesting and embarrassing thing happened, right? Which is the greatest thing that ever happened to me was Punk'd. But then I went and did Without a Paddle. And I immediately, when they would write reviews of it and they'd say, the guy from Punk'd or the guy from the reality show, right? So for years, I was ashamed and embarrassed that I had come from Punk'd and that I was on a reality show.
I knew you were.
Yeah. And it took me, I got to say, it took me about 10 years before I was able to come back around and be proud of having done that show. And it's such a failing of my own self-esteem that I just was like, no, I want to be a real actor. I don't want to be a guy who was on a reality show.
But the weird thing is that show, so amongst many other reality shows that are out there, and in no way, shape, or form judging anyone who's doing a reality show, the difference is that show was formulaic improv acting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in every single sketch that we did, there was an outline for the sketch, what we were trying to accomplish, what we were trying to do.
Right.
And then the nuance of the interior was all improv acting, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you were playing a character every single time. And I think that there's because a lot of people, especially as like the whole paparazzi reality stuff started happening, like the TMZ guys would be like, come on, man, you did a reality show. I was like, yeah, but every single person that was ever on that show signed a waiver and agreed to actually be on it. It wasn't as if like we were like, haunting people on the sides of the street. Like they all signed waivers and agreed to be on it. And anybody who wasn't on it.
Yeah.
What you were doing was acting. It was performing and acting. But I knew going out of it because I had the same, like after I did do Where's My Car?
Yeah. That's kind of why I bring it up, because you've had a couple things I imagine that were like, they were everything, but then yet as soon as they happen, you start like wanting to be away from them.
So after 5 years of, later after Do Where's My Car and people were still dude sweeting me, I was like, really? Like, can we have a different, like, can I do something else with my career that is significant?
Yeah.
And then after Punked, it was like, oh, you got punked. I still today, like people are like, are you punking me right now? I'm like, no, I'm literally.
Well, it's not 2003.
I'm
so.
not punking you.
Yeah.
So, and then you kind of want to get away from it and get and put the next thing under the belt, because you don't want to be known for that one thing.
Yeah.
And I knew that you had that feeling in that sense. But and I'm glad that you got to a point where you now celebrate it, because what you did was extraordinary work. And in a weird way, the reason why when you started by saying thank you and I say no, thank you, is because A, without you, I don't think this show would have been nearly as successful as it was. And B, I got a lot of credit for that show because I was, hosting the show and behind the scenes and helping directing and producing it. And they would show me feed in a line to you and then you would say it. But 90% of the stuff that you did was your material, your own stuff. And it was funny and great and brilliant. And I think I got a lot of credit for a lot of the stuff that was organically yours. And so,
well, the thing I'm really proud of now is that having done a bunch of regular acting work, I regularly on the set of Parenthood was not good the first 3 takes. It was not believable what I was doing. And I got to do it again and again and again until I got to where it was believable. And certainly on Punk, that it was one take.
It was one take.
Yeah. And if you fucked up, the bit was kind of over.
It was dead.
Like they would realize, oh, this is bullshit.
It wasn't just over. It was, sometimes $200,000, $300,000 down.
Yeah, oh
the drain
yeah. And
right?
certain,
so from a production standpoint, it was like
the stakes were high. And I hadn't done anything either. And there were certain guests we had, like when we did Timberlake, all of MTV came. Like that was such a marquee person for them, and their relationship was obviously so important that they really were micromanaging that. So the garage was full of everyone that worked at MTV was in that garage, and they had all pulled me aside separately to say, don't fuck this one up. This isn't the one to go big on. All these different things were happening, and then it went off. But I think of what we got away with the Nick Lachey one. Now I'm really proud of that. Like that one as far as could possibly go, probably without he and I fist fighting. And he never at one point thought it wasn't real, which is I think is pretty amazing.
It was there were 2 things that were like being able to press the buttons as hard as you press the buttons and stay in it and not break and lose your shit. 1, 2, it was like the value of the non sequitur like connectivity was I go back to like Dave Navarro and Carmen Electra in the back of an SUV, and you're like shooting the shit with him about drum sets and like and like your random access knowledge base on so many variable topics to be able to like find some connective tissue that you could chit chat with the guy about.
Hell, there's a topic I know 4% of. I'll talk about it.
And you would just go.
The best about Nick Lachey was you came in my ear and you go, oh my God, he just said, because we could hear what he was saying inside of the house because the house was a microphone, but I was in the front yard. And then you came in my ear and you go, oh my God, he just said to Jessica, I think I'm going to have to fight this guy to get him off my property. You're like, go back to the door. And then I go knock on the door. I'm like, are you talking about fighting? Which, how on earth would I have heard that from the other side of the door? And he was like, no one there. There'll be no fighting today. Whatever. That was, that was spectacular.
It was the adrenaline rush of go was a different level. Like you get, like I get mild versions of it doing sitcom, which is why I like doing sitcom so much because
you have a live audience.
And so there's and a joke is going to slay and you don't want to fuck it up because you have a live audience. It's like doing a play, right? So there's a little bit of that same energy and you just get jacked off of that energy.
Yeah.
before you go. So there's a little bit of that, but I don't think anything would compare to like, the mark is here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's
let's go. Everybody in their place. The mark is here. Here we go. We're ready to go.
He's here. He's here. That's him.
Okay. Get it. There he is. He's right there. Oh, there's a bogey. Get the bogey out of here. Somebody go clear the bogey. It was like just the intense nature of like pulling one of those things off. I don't think.
And they were very exhilarating when they would end.
Oh,
it was quite a high.
Yeah.
I imagine it's what being on stage at, in New York is like or something.
Yeah.
But I think that you and I think you and I share this in common. I think it's a very human thing. But now that you've been doing it now for, I guess, 25 years, you've been employed doing this, right?
20 years.
Yeah. As an entertainer. And I've now been doing it for 15 years or whatever. And I think it's a human thing where it's like, I would have this goal and it was a goal that I didn't even think was accomplishable, or it was just in the stratosphere of goals. And then I would get that goal. And then the second I get that goal, it's immediately, fuck, I need to do that thing. And then I would get that thing. And then now I got to do that thing. And there's people I had to be. And there was like, I had to be Will Ferrell at one point. Like I had to be Adam Sandler, like after Without a Paddle, my ego went, it's just started projecting on what this could be, because this is already crazier than I thought was ever possible. And then just is constantly moving the goalpost, which I think is very human. It for me, it was a rough way to evaluate my life, because I remember, in fact, I was talking to Kevin Smith and we were talking about movies, and he was saying movies he directed that he loved that didn't work and this and that, right? And I was lamenting at that time that Chips hadn't made a bunch of money. And he said, which I just think is brilliant, he's like, imagine you go back and you find 12-year-old Dax and you tell Dax, when you grow up, you're going to write and direct a movie for Warner Brothers. He goes, do you think that 12-year-old version of yourself at any point would be like, what did it make?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like you would not evaluate yourself by that. Yet I do that continuously, right? Or I think I'm inching closer to not doing that, and my life's getting, exponentially better because of it. But do you think you've had that as well, where it's like, you're from fucking Iowa, you end up on this huge hit TV show, the 70s show, right? And your brain is like, but I got to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do it. And I don't think you can help but do it. I had a weird, so when I was in college, and I was in this fraternity, at one point they told us to write down what our life goals were, and write them down in your pocket and just keep it in your wallet.
It sounds like a nice fraternity. That's not what I associate fraternities with.
There was a ton of other stuff. This is like maybe the one value story that I'm going to extract. But I wrote down that I wanted to move to Hollywood and be on the big screen. And then that happened. Right. And then you're like, oh, and I carried it around in my wallet until the day it happened. And then I wrote a new one, which still hasn't happened. Yeah. Win an Oscar. Yeah, good luck with that one, buddy. You're a different kind of actor. It's weird when you start to hit those goals. And I had a weird little, you're kind of like, as an entertainer, you're balancing between the commerce and the art all the time. And you're kind of jumping back and forth. And a lot of people do this, like do one for them, one for me thing. Well, right. Yeah. Really? How many people have the ability to do one for them, one for me? Good.
I'm happy with either of those.
Yeah. Like I'm happy to have the next job. Right? Yeah. But in the last year, I got to the point where it was like the commerce piece didn't so much matter, right? Like I actually have like enough financial stability where I could kind of not work and be okay. Yeah. And so now I'm at a point where it's like I have no excuses for it to not be craft and art. And it's and I don't know if I'm like exacting on that yet, but it's a weird thing.
But even that, don't you think that even that is a little bit ego? So I have been in things that were really successful and then I was embarrassed by them, right? Or like,
sure.
like Seth and I went to the first screening of Without a Paddle. We thought we were making Diner in the Woods. I mean, we really did think that while we were making it.
Have you seen My Boss's Daughter? Have you seen? I mean, I've got a laundry list.
Yeah, but we see the movie and we're like, oh my god, this movie is for 12-year-olds. This isn't Diner in the Woods. And then we're kind of embarrassed or whatever we are. And then the movie comes out and it does well. And then years later, I'm like in Ohio. Chris and I are riding my motorcycle from New York to Detroit. We stop at a Best Western in Ohio, and this woman comes up to me in the parking lot, and she's holding the Without a Paddle DVD, and she goes, "We're on our Without a Paddle trip. My family every year we go canoeing. That's why we're here in Ohio. We go canoeing, and we bring the movie, and we watch the movie every day, and then we go." And I was like, that absolutely blew my mind. And then I thought, how on earth is that more relevant than having been in a movie that made $6 million that got a nomination for an award? Literally, the difference is my ego says, oh, my peers or the people I want approval from will like that tiny movie. Yeah. And at a certain point, you have to question, like, what is one audience better to serve than another?
Yeah, so I don't know that it's about like serving one audience or the other.
I guess it's doing what movies you like, maybe.
It's doing things. I think for me, the difference has become doing things that have some level of social relevance that have the potential to leave an imprint and change the way that people see something or think about something. Mm-hmm. And so I'll take The Ranch as an example.
Right.
I don't think anybody is going to look at The Ranch on Netflix and go, okay, that's a highbrow piece of material. Uh-huh. But there's this giant underserved audience in the middle of America that doesn't have shows made for it anymore.
Right.
And so like there's a reason why so many people watch Duck Dynasty. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason why people watch Ice Road Truckers.
People hate ducks.
Exactly. Well, it's mostly they just want to see ducks go down. But there was all this programming that I was noticing that was on television that was being directed at this audience that was drastically underserved.
Yeah.
And my thought of going and doing a show like The Ranch is to, we tackled the subject of abortion, but we tackled it from the perspective of middle America, where it's not so clean cut and clear. Right.
Yeah.
And there's a valuable point on one side of the argument that is totally underserved in media across the board.
Sure.
Right. Which is the right to life, right?
Yeah.
And then you also have this pro-choice argument that is represented in the show, and it wasn't so clean and clear and cut that one was the more viable option,
right,
on the show.
Yeah.
And now for me, I have my own personal belief,
sure,
which you kind of have to put aside for the character that you're playing.
Yeah.
But like being able to tackle a topic like that and play it out relative to what societal norms are in different places has a different social impact when you come from it from the perspective from a conservative perspective.
Yes. Well, I'm pro-choice, but I 100% get pro-life. If you think that is murdering an actual baby at 2 months, if that's what you believe, then fuck yes, you should fight nonstop. And I totally get it. I personally don't think that's killing a baby, but if you think that, and I can certainly wrap my head around it, then that should be your number one when you vote and everything else. That should probably govern all your decisions.
So I look at it and I go, I would agree with you and say I'm pro-choice, but I can totally understand the argument of pro-life. Mm-hmm. And I believe that for pro-life people to have a pro-life perspective for themselves is viable and valuable. To have it for other people, give them a choice of. Everyone should have the right in some degree to govern their own choices about what they do with their own bodies.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to take the choice away from other people to make that choice. But being able to have, in most public places, you can't have that argument today. Well, because it devolves so quickly into an argument that is unsolvable.
Yes.
And so being able to actually produce media that addresses these types of topics, or that addresses global warming from the perspective of a rancher, or that addresses immigration from the perspective of a rancher, that being able to sort of do something like that has a different level.
So it's that political. The
show is, yeah. So it is in its undertones, right? So in the stories that we choose, I think this season we're going to potentially look at veterans and and just the sort of different skew on veteran health.
I would play a great vet. Looking at me, don't I scream vet?
I mean, if you want to,
I went to Afghanistan twice to entertain the troops. I think I'm halfway there.
If you want to come hang out, we might have a vacancy in our show at this point.
Great.
So
I'll do it.
But the point being that it doesn't have to be the most highbrow. Like, this is certainly not to serve the audience in Los Angeles or our peers in the entertainment business, but it has a social relevance that's different than other things, than just going off and doing a funny movie for funny sake.
Yeah.
And I think I'd love to tackle a movie about mental health. Like, I think that would be an interesting topic to take on. I'd love to tackle a movie about, privacy, which I think is an interesting topic. And it's really about, like, for me at this point, it's about taking on pieces of work that actually have some level of social relevance around a topic that I care about.
Yeah. And I think that's admirable. But what I'm thinking more about, because I get in a lot of debates with actors who are generally, is very actory, to be unhappy on the show you're on, right? There's like most actors I talk to, they're lamenting about some aspect of the show they're on, which is crazy to me, right? Mind you, I've done it, so it's not like I can't relate. But it is funny when you think about, for me, it's very clear because I don't believe in God, right? So I don't think I'm going to go to heaven and reflect back on my life at any point and go like, oh, everyone loved you and blah, blah, blah. So for me, my life is really about what's happening day to day while I'm here for the next 45 years.
For you, it's about being able to go to sleep at night.
That's all I'm trying to do is just fucking go to sleep.
Get to the point.
I'm looking forward to dying so I could just sleep. But when you think about when you're evaluating your career, which I think is just dangerous in general, instead of just going like, what I've observed about you is I've gone to the 70s show. I've watched you do the 70s show, and then I've watched you at the curtain call where your people are clapping and you fucking love being on a sitcom. Like you enjoy that, or at least the times I saw it.
I love having a
right?
live audience to play to.
Yeah, it's a blast, right?
It's the best.
And it should end there, right? You shouldn't. I think that's like all that really matters is like what are you doing daily, and what is that experience like? And your life is about these experiences, and it's not until your narrative self starts writing the book about Ashton and saying, "Well, I should have been on Breaking Bad."
Yeah, I don't do.
Do you
that.
still do that?
No, I don't do that. But I have been.
But you did at a time, right?
I have been on a sitcom that I didn't enjoy being on.
Okay, well, it has to be 2.5 Men because you've only been on 3, right?
Well, and the only reason that I struggle with it is because I didn't know what I was supposed to be playing. Like I was trying, I was like
that was a very weird thing to experience, right?
Yeah, it was weird. I thought it was one thing going in, and then it slowly became something else as I was on it, and it was I loved working with the people that I work with because I had an extraordinary group of people that I was working with. But I didn't know my character. Like I wasn't 100%. You know, when you have a character that you're playing and you know what the character's edge is, like you kind of know what their vices are,
right?
And so you know how to lean every joke, and it just becomes natural to where to lean a joke.
Yeah,
I couldn't quite. I struggled every single day figuring out where to lean my jokes on this character, and I couldn't find an edge for the character that was, and so it was.
How many years did you do that? 3?
Like 3 years, but I found it hard. And I wasn't sure what the message of the show was. Like,
like you're like Kelso probably got easier and easier every year to play for you,
to the
right?
point where it got boring.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I left the show, because I left the show 2 seasons before I think it was over. And it wasn't about I need to leave to go have some big movie career. This is the time where I'm going to go, because I probably would have made more money just staying on the show.
Right.
I just wasn't interested in playing that character anymore because I played it for a while and I knew I could have written it, right? Like I knew exactly what the next joke was going to be, and I I was recycling material, and it just got to a point where I was like, okay, I think I'm done doing it. Like, this isn't exciting and fun for me.
Right. You were also young. How old were you when you left?
26, 25, 25.
You're 3 years.
I was 26.
You're 3 years younger than me, which is depressing.
I was 26.
But yeah, I remember coming home like maybe season 3 of Parenthood and saying to Kristen, I think I've gotten so lazy or something, because like I'm not doing anything now to be Crosby. She goes, "Oh no, hon, that's what being on a show is all about. Like it just gets easier and easier and easier. And then weirdly, I'm getting better and better at it, doing less and less and less and thinking less and less about it, which was I loved. I could have done. I feel like I could have done that for 20 years.
Yeah, at this point, I always go to my writing staff on the ranch now, and I'm like, write me a scene that's hard for this character. Like write me something that is like hard for him to deal with and play.
Right.
So that so I have to think about,
Well, do you
God,
think-
how would he react to that?
Do you think you are ADD?
A little bit.
Because you have a ton of pursuits, right? You act, you produce, but you also have this whole tech thing you do,
Yep.
and all this investing.
Mhm.
Do you think it's because you get bored easy, or do you think it's because back to like our narrative? Are there things you want to accomplish because you want to be seen in some way?
So
Let me start. I'll share first, just so you know. Where I'm
I know
coming
exactly
from.
where you're going.
I grew up dyslexic. So
Yep.
I have this huge chip on my shoulder that everyone thinks I'm stupid. So I'm almost insufferable.
Meanwhile,
I'm a
you're one of the-
know-it-all. That's
you're
why
one of the more intelligent people I know.
that's why the show's called Armchair Expert, because I'm still compensating from going to special ed as a kid. And I just wonder if there's anything in your past that has you so driven. Like, is it just pure curiosity and healthiness, or are you trying to?
No, it's absolute insecurity.
Okay, great.
So
That's what I was hoping.
So
That's way more interesting to me.
I go back and I watch like the first episodes of That 70s Show, and I'm shocked I didn't get fired. I was sure I was going to get fired.
Sure.
I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have a clue. I didn't understand a joke. Like I didn't understand sarcasm.
What were you, 19?
Yeah, and I really had no idea what was, and I was convinced I was going to get fired.
Mm-hmm.
Like convinced. And in fact, at one point in time, Terry Turner like grabbed me and pushed me up against the wall and was like, "What are you doing to my character? Why are you doing this?" And I'm like, "I don't know what I'm doing." Like I honestly,
I'm not in control of anything I'm doing.
I think this was like season 3, right? This is at the moment where I started to gain a little confidence, right? I was like, okay, I got this. And I was like, I'm getting fired. Like, that's it. Like, and I was sure I was going to get fired. So I was like, I'm starting a production company because at least and there's a lot of downtime on a set and you're just kind of sitting around and And so that was like step 1. And then I actually got fired from a Cameron Crowe movie.
Okay.
I had this interesting point.
Which is probably a blessing.
I don't know. It was a blessing for me from a work ethic perspective relative to how to build a character and everything else. But so I was doing 70 Show at the time and Punked, and I booked this M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Okay.
And at the same time,
Which one?
The Village.
Oh, okay.
So at the same time, I booked Elizabethtown with Cameron Crowe, and I was like, holy shit! Like this is it, right?
Yeah.
Like now I'm going to be a lead. This is my leading man moment, and I was like, do I do this M. Night Shyamalan?
Really
thing?
quick, do you remember at that time who the archetype was that you wanted to be? Whose career at that moment?
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. Okay,
Like,
right
give
to
me-
the top.
Give me Tom Cruise.
Give me Mount
I'm-
Everest.
like that's where I'm gonna. That's
Yes,
that's
yes. That's great. I said Will Ferrell, so it's the same shit.
No,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
That was
I was
it,
gonna be
right?
Jim Carrey or
Like
Will Ferrell.
I
or
had
Adam
moved like
Sandler.
when I was a kid. When I came out, I wanted to be
Tom Bergeron.
No, I'm blanking on his name. From
Say a movie.
God, why am I blanking on this guy's name? I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. Kirk Cameron.
Oh,
I was like Kirk Cameron.
Yeah.
On like
Who's the boss?
no. Full. It wasn't Full House. It was Growing Pains.
Full Boss.
Growing Pains. Kirk Cameron
yeah.
from Growing Pains,
Yes.
right?
He
That
was awesome.
that was my like 13, 12-year-old self was like someday Kirk Cameron.
Yes.
That would be like
Yeah.
and then
Or Patrick Dempsey from Can't Buy Me Love back then.
Okay.
Yeah, I
All
thought
right.
he was the boss.
I was all Kirk Cameron, Mike Seaver all day.
Okay,
Like that
great.
was
Yeah,
my, and so then then I moved. Like I was like Tom Cruise. This is it, the next level. Like, and so I got this Cameron Crowe movie, and I had to turn down the M. Night Shyamalan movie, and I don't think Scott Rudin was very happy about that.
He produced the Shyamalan movie.
Right.
Okay.
And which sucks because I think Scott Rudin's probably the best producer in the entire. And I don't think at that point I ever got a chance to work with him again.
Yeah.
Someday maybe I'll just be like, I think I should have done your movie.
Yeah.
So I started working with Cameron on this thing, and we were doing rehearsals and he kept videotaping me while I was doing the rehearsals. And I was like, why are you videotaping?
That would make me very nervous.
And I was getting very nervous. And he was like, I want to show you the things that you're doing that I want you to, that I like. And I was like, okay. And we were just in rehearsal. He's like, you haven't memorized any of this. I was like, well, we're not shooting yet. And he's like, well, yeah, but we're rehearsing it, so you need to get it on. And I was like, and I had a lot going on in my life, and with the show and this and that, and my own social life and everything else. And I was sort of pseudo focusing on it, but not really. Like I was like, I'm going to show up and play it.
Yeah.
Not like I'm going to really prepare it and do the work to get ready to perform this character. And I got fired.
Can I ask you a quick question? Do you think, was there any part of you that was afraid you weren't going to be able to execute this, so you weren't giving it 100%?
No.
So you'd have some kind of excuse at some point?
No, it totally wasn't that. It was that I didn't know how to prepare
Right.
to do this kind of work.
Yeah.
Like I had
Yeah. How would you?
Like I'd know
It's not on the back
I'd
of a
never taken
Wheaties
an
box
acting
or
class.
something.
I'd never done nothing. Like, and I didn't have an acting and so, and I was just not, and every other role I played, I kind of showed up and just did what came to me in that moment. And that was what and so I really didn't know how to prepare, and I got fired. And then I was like, it's over.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and so then I'm like, double down on everything that's not acting, because you might never work again.
Right.
And I was pretty sure at that point that I wasn't going to work again.
And you're embarrassed, right?
And embarrassed.
Yeah.
And
I got fired the other day. I had about a half hour of being embarrassed.
but I was also like, I was way too cocky and way too arrogant and way too sure that I had already got there. Right.
Yeah.
And so then I just was like, I'm just going to double down on this production stuff. And in doing that, I started finding an interest in technology.
I want to defend you for half a second here, because I like to use Bill Clinton as an example of this. So people are shocked that Bill Clinton was getting blowjobs in the Oval Office and stuff. And I say, well, if your entire life, all the data you've collected thus far is every time they told me something couldn't happen or I couldn't do something, I did it, right? Like, to say you're going to be the governor of Arkansas at his age, no one had done that. So then he does that and he goes, oh, well, I guess what they told me is not true. I can do this. And then, oh, you're going to become the president after getting fired as the governor, then be the governor again, then become, your whole life, all this evidence you've collected is like, oh, don't listen. They're not right. I end up doing all this stuff, right? And so, yeah, you think you can get away with a blowjob in the Oval Office. I would imagine similarly, you were doing fucking great. All the evidence you had collected at that point as a young dude was, no, if I try, it'll work out and I'll have some success.
Yeah, if I show up on the day and I've
it's
got
not like you had
memorized
stumbled from not putting in the work up to that point.
No.
So how were you supposed to just through osmosis know that?
I didn't know, and there wasn't really a way to know
until I got
and then I fucked up, and then I got it. Like at that point, I was like, oh, I got it. And that's when I started working on my acting. Like where I was like, wait a second, if I actually want to take this serious, I have to work as an actor to get better as an actor. And
right.
Like since I've worked with the acting coaches and I've, read tons of books on acting and like learned about acting, because before I literally showed up and put whatever I had in the room and that was enough.
Sure.
And so that was a good moment, but it also made me double down on other things. And so I started focusing on, for my production company, I saw buffering speeds were getting faster and faster for online video. And I was like, wait a second, this is the next, like, who needs TV?
Right.
And then I found Twitter and started finding a bunch of other things that I thought were interesting and started investing in them.
Really quick, because I remember stopping by one time, I think to Catalyst, to your company. You have a cool building. You still have it?
No, I gave away the company.
Okay.
But I don't have.
Well, at any rate, you had a really cool space, and I stopped by there, and I think you were saying, "Oh, on this day of every month, this room is a think tank, and I get all these designers and programmers, and they come in here, and we kind of think tank." And I remember thinking that you were a very unlikely mascot for that group, for Silicon Valley guys, because if I'm a Silicon Valley guy, I feel like I would hate you because you're gorgeous and you're tall. Why is it that they accepted you like that? You were okay.
But I don't have.
Well, at any rate, you had a really cool space,
and started investing in them.
Really quick, because I remember stopping by one time, I think to Catalyst, to your company. You have a cool building. You still have it?
No, I got rid of that. Gave away the company.
Okay.
But I don't have.
Well,
a building
at any rate, you had a really cool space, and I stopped by there, and I think you were saying, "Oh, on this day of every month, this room is a think tank, and I get all these designers and programmers, and they come in here, and we kind of think tank." And I remember thinking that you were a very unlikely mascot for that group, for Silicon Valley guys, because if I'm a Silicon Valley guy, I feel like I would hate you because you're gorgeous and you're tall. Why is it that they accepted you like that? I imagine them like
I showed up.
Like I imagine Paul Giamatti being huge in that community where he could have a thing because he's one of them that got through. Is it just because you reached out first?
No, I was like one of the first people that I would fly up there
to meet them,
go to these gigantic tech conferences, and not sit on a panel and be an expert,
right?
Not judge anything, like I'm the expert.
You were there to learn.
I was just there, and I would sit down and I would take 20 meetings in a day with every single person in the space.
How are you even getting those meetings? Like someone
I hired somebody. So I went to one of these things, and I found this woman that named Sarah Ross that basically brought in all the companies to this TechCrunch 50 at the time, and I hired her to run my digital division, and she knew everyone in the Valley.
Right.
And she just started,
connecting you,
reaching out and going, "Hey, this guy wants to meet with you. He just wants to learn. He just wants to talk to you and get some advice." And I just went and started asking everyone for advice.
There was no part of you, because I imagine myself in that scenario, and I would be trying to let them know just how much I understand of their world. You were able to not do that and just be a student.
I didn't understand. I mean, first of all, I went to school.
Did you try to impress them at all?
Well, I went to school for biochemical engineering.
Yeah.
And so I had some engineering cred, right?
Sure.
Like I understand programming language. I don't write code, but I understand it.
Okay.
I understand how it works. I read tons of books and learned, how a computer works, and learned how, I actually understand a lot of these basic things. And I think that part of where I connected with folks was on product, on understanding what people would intuitively do and why they would do it.
Yeah.
And based on what was the optimized want of any given page or screen. Right? Like what do you want people to do on this page or screen?
Right.
And I could understand the feeling of that.
Yeah.
And I think that from a product sensibility standpoint, there were certain little things that I would look at and I would go, well, why wouldn't you move this here and do that in order to get people through this funnel this way?
Yeah.
And people would go, whoa, that's actually a decent idea.
Right.
And once I gained a little bit of credibility with a couple people, then they became
that spread. They
became the tenants for me to build relationships with other people, because they go, oh, he's actually a pretty good product guy and thinks about this stuff the same way that we think about this stuff.
Yeah.
And so that was the way that I managed.
I have that in the automotive world, but there's no way to make money on it.
Well, yeah, sure there is.
well, yet to be seen.
I mean, there certainly could be, right?
Yeah. But I know what you're saying. I guess what I'm saying is when I'm out in the sand dunes, the dudes are like, no, he's a real gearhead. Like I get the pass. Makes me feel great.
Yeah, but so
he can really build an engine.
So here's the thing. So once you get the real gearhead cred from one guy, he introduces you to another real gearhead cred guy and another one, and then the next thing you know, you actually build a pretty strong network of folks.
Yes.
So then that.
But you are uniquely good at because you have a good track record. I have been invited, as you get invited when you're on TV, to go to the launch of some app or maybe to invest in it, and I literally go, I have no idea what people would want to use as an app. I don't use many apps. I use Postmates because I like getting food delivered to my house. That's about it. So I can't even begin to, like when Uber was explained to me, I thought, who the fuck doesn't want to drive? That's how egocentric my point of view is. I'm like, I would never want to have some guy drive me around.
That's why I passed on it the first time I saw it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Because you have the same thing.
I love
driving.
this guy, Tony Hsieh, who invented Zappos.
Loves Zappos.
Had this party bus that at South by Southwest during Tech Week that he would drive around and everybody would get drunk on the. And Travis, who was the former CEO, was on. He was pitching me this thing. I was like, "Wow, who wants to get picked up in a black car? Like that's kind of like gross to get dropped off by like like." And I was like, "No, it doesn't make sense." And I passed on it. And then like a year later, I was like, I realized that the Uber X factor where it was going to be Priuses and it was going to be this and it was going to be, I was like, I think there are a lot of people that are now trying to move into the investing space.
Yes.
And it's like, I mean, listen, it's hard and a lot of work. And
most are losers, right? The vast majority.
I mean, you're investing in 100 things so that 2 work and cover all your losses. Right. And so you have to have enough money to hang around for 100. And 2, you have to have the sort of diligence to find the 2 that are going to cover for the other 100.
Now, what has this done for your self-esteem, knowing that you have done well in this industry completely outside of ours? I'll start with the example. Every time Kristen and I go, I have the same pattern. If we get invited to the Golden Globes or the Academy Awards or whatever it is, leading up to it, I go, oh my God, I don't want to go to that thing. They're all going to be going, why is that dude from Punk'd here? Who let him in? This is what my voice in my head's telling me, right? And then we go to these things and then it turns out like, oh, I know a lot of these people and they seem to like me. I'm pretty sure they like me. On the way home, I always go, oh, that was really fun. I think people liked me. I hope I remember that the next time we get invited, but I don't. I go through the same process, right? Of why will he be here?
We're 20 years deep now. You actually do know most.
Yes,
of the
I do.
You've got to be over that by now.
I'm getting over that. But I do imagine having succeeded in something outside of our thing would just make me feel a little more confident when I'm at those things. Is that a part of your self-esteem now where you go?
Well, my thing was always as a backup career in case my acting thing fails,
sure.
Right? And by the way, at some point, like a lot of you age out and like what I'm sure 50% of the reason why I get any role is relative to how I look, and and when that goes, like then what, right?
Yeah.
Like, and
it seems to be sticking around.
I've got this receding hairline. You know about it.
Well,
I told you all about it.
I did want to ask you about that because you've gone off of Propecia.
Yeah, I'm
just
completely off.
So risky of you. I don't know what I want. Can I out us for this? I just want to say that we. I'll just say I went to a doctor. I had heard that there was this doctor who could give you a hair as thick as Brad Pitt's, and he would stab you in the head repeatedly with a syringe, and he would inject God knows what, chicken egg serum or something. And I was going to this guy. And I was doing it for like 2 years or something. I was like, and then finally I was like, what am I doing? I'm going, this guy's jabbing my head with a needle. Nothing's happening. But I did do that.
There's this, I've participated in all of these things. Anything.
Well, now I will allow you. I think we both went to this doctor.
I think I recommended the guy to you. What are you talking about?
And then my whole thing was, remember, I didn't like, they would put a numbing spray on your head. And then I got off on the fact I was like, no numbing spray.
Listen.
I felt sissy enough to even be there getting this thing done. I thought the only bit of masculinity I could retain is that I'd go no numbing spray.
I've gone off of anything to retain. So when I started getting very concerned when I was about 25 that it was going. Right?
Yeah,
I was like, it's
Mad
going.
dash.
And I'm 25. I've got I had to maintain.
Yeah, it's
and
scary.
So that's when I went on the Avidart, and I started to go see the guy that would do the needle.
Stab your head.
And I was just times. I think like 5 years ago or something, I was like, I can't do the guy.
You got to get up the treadmill.
Like I can't do the guy. So I stopped doing the guy, and I was like, oh, I'm hanging in there. Right?
Yeah, right.
And then when I had kids, I didn't know what the side effects of this Avidart stuff were relative to like having children. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to risk it. I'm just going to stop. So I stopped, and I did really good for like a year. And then it's starting to like,
thinning out a little bit.
But here's.
So what's the solution? More hats or back on Avidart?
No, I'm not. I'm just.
You're never going to go back on Propecia.
No, I'm just. So here's
it's so reckless of you.
So here's what happened.
I'm still on it, by the way.
I went in and I'd quit using it, and I went into my doctor, and my testosterone levels were like alarmingly low. And it's because because I'd quit using the stuff. So this.
Oh, interesting, because it is a testosterone inhibitor, Propecia and Avodart.
Yeah, so there's
DHT.
Yeah, so it removes the DHT, which is a byproduct of testosterone, which actually kills the follicles. And so it removes it. So your body, in response to that, makes more testosterone.
Oh,
because your body's using DHT for something. Who knows? We still don't know all this.
Right.
So your body starts dumping more and more testosterone.
Oh.
So then you go off of it, right? And your body goes, "Oh, I don't need all of this testosterone."
Yeah, I have
and so then
of DHT.
It jumps your testosterone into the cellar, which then keeps your hair for really nice for like a year, right? Because now you have drastically reduced testosterone levels.
Right.
So then gradually,
your prostate's tiny and healthy.
And gradually your testosterone levels start to increase, and then the hair starts to go. So now I'm at the hair starting to go. But I've actually become comfortable with that as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm just good with it.
You're so healthy.
I got kids now.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about, because a lot of these like kind of existential crises that I've dealt with and you've dealt with, and my ego and my self-esteem, all these things, I was attempting to elevate my own opinion of myself by a lot of outward kind of accomplishments. And then to my surprise, this thing, having kids, really gave me all the perspective I needed, where I feel like I've just gotten so much happier over the last 5 years. And your wife and my wife have done a couple movies together. Well, I think they've done 3 movies together, but we were all down in Louisiana, in New Orleans. And you were a new father. And I was so delighted to see what a great dad you are and how involved you are, and that you're down there just to watch the kids so mom can work, which is why I'm down there too. So it was really awesome to be sharing that same role. And I could see that it was doing the same thing to you that it was doing to me, which was just like happiness, self-esteem, being of service. Now I realize if they're good, life's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, what would you say that these kids have done for you?
Yeah,
and how have they made you kind of recalibrate what it is you're even after in life?
Well, so that's probably the biggest, the work-life balance had to completely shift, right? Like I've been a workaholic my entire life, and if you leave me to my own devices, I'll work from the moment I wake up until the moment I fall asleep, and I'll fall asleep working, and I've lived that life for a fair amount of time. Now with kids, when Mila's shooting a film, I don't work. And so I legitimately go to wherever she is and wherever she's shooting, move the whole family, set up the kids, get them on a schedule, and I'm at home making sure they get fed, make sure they go to bed at night, make sure they wake up in the morning, make sure they're dressed and cleaned and blah, blah, blah. And that's a lot of fucking work.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's a workaholic's dream.
Yeah.
Because you can
never ever stop.
You can service your kids all day long if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And
as I say, they're in a constant state of either creating a mess or I'm picking up the mess. You know what I'm saying? There's no homeostasis. There's no neutral.
None.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think that the biggest thing with the kids has been now 3 years in, learning how to back off a little bit and go, wait, I don't have to be there every second of every moment of every day. In fact, it probably behooves them to spend time with other people occasionally,
sure. Yeah.
and not have me picking up everything. And so
does your daughter go to preschool? She does.
Yeah,
right?
she does.
Yeah.
And so that's been like a really good balancing function. But also I think just like it made me in work have to take a step back and go, all right, where are the moments of work that I'm vital? Mm-hmm. So what are the things that I can give up the responsibility for and give to somebody else to do? It's almost like moving into like a CEO role of my work.
Delegating.
Yeah, where I'm delegating work to other folks to do that are things that I don't have to do, and getting really comfortable with them doing it their way as opposed to them doing it my way.
Yes.
Because I can't micromanage it and oversee it. Yeah. And so I think I've become a much more efficient with my work and much more effective with my work as a result of the kids.
Yeah.
And in a sense, like have the confidence now that I go, well, if it doesn't really matter, I'm not going to do it because that's time I can be spending with my kids. And and to me, that's the biggest like eye opener where you go like, does this really matter? Like, do I really give a shit about doing this thing that I'm doing right
Yeah.
now because I could be spending time with my kids. So
Well, yeah, I think it right sizes all of your preoccupied, all the things you think about or dream about or focus on or aim towards. It really reduces the importance of those things in a very healthy way, I think.
yeah, and whatever hobbies I've had,
Because I was weirdly afraid to have kids. I think Kristen was too. Because I was thinking, oh well, this all my career pursuits take up so much time. I don't know how I have time for, and I haven't accomplished a lot of things I'm trying to accomplish. So where on earth do these kids fit in? And for me, it was ironic that I ended up doing way more stuff professionally since having kids than I did before having them. Yet I just did it in a different way.
Yeah, I don't know how you direct a movie with kids.
Well, what was great, I'll tell you what was great about that is we were shooting in the wintertime. 95% of the script was exterior. So we shot while the sun was up and down,
There
and
you
the
go.
sun goes down at 4:00. So
Yeah.
even during the whole production of Chips, I put them to bed every single night. I was at the Halloween party.
That's unbelievable.
And that was just a crazy blessing, something I would now know to design in advance. Like,
Yeah.
it's all outside and I'm going to do it when there's no daylight and tough shit. And we just need more days.
Yeah.
But yeah, decisions like that you learn to make.
I think it just shifts focus and it shifts priorities. And the only thing that I've sacrificed relative to it is hobbies.
Yeah.
My hobbies have
yeah.
gone to like pot. Like I can't wait until they're old enough to go snowboarding. Right.
Yeah.
Or like
Well,
to go fishing.
Lincoln rides a motorcycle already.
Yeah. There you go.
Yes, because I need to do that.
Yeah.
And I need to be with her, and I also need to be off-roading a lot.
Yeah.
So
That's so
she's got to join me.
Yes. So getting the kids to the age where they can actually like, I don't golf, but I started to teach my daughter how to golf because for as sports go, I think like a lot of the sports that I do now in 10 years, I'm not going to be able to do.
Oh yeah, well I have friends who golf. I'm like, are you fucking crazy? If I told Kristen I was leaving on Saturday
for 3 hours,
no more. I think those guys are out there for 5 hours.
It's unbelievable. I don't know how they do
she
it.
She would never, ever say
but
that's
we
cool.
both had like, yeah. See, my
And if
wife.
she
No.
told me she was going to do something for 5 hours
No,
on Saturday, I'd be like,
what are you
fuck
talking
that.
on the no.
We did this together. We made this mess together.
I can
and we're gonna
barely
fucking
watch
pick it up.
football. Are
Yeah,
you
no, it
kidding?
can't be done.
You can't do it.
I was on fantasy football leagues before I had kids, and no way now.
I play, but I don't. I mean, I play based on like data. Like
Sure,
I'm not
you're
even like
phoning
watching
it
the
in.
game. And thank God the Bears had an awful season because there was no chance I was watching a full game.
Yeah.
Like it was just like, and you got the Lions, so there's no point in watching
nothing to
anyway.
watch.
So
Yeah.
between our two teams, like
Yeah.
that's the perfect, like I watched the first 3 games because I get really, and now it's playoffs and maybe I'll catch a game or two.
Yeah. I only get to see a game is if we go to a friend's house who also have kids, and that dad's got more pull than I do, and he's allowed to watch football all day. So then I get to piggyback on the.
What are we doing wrong?
Well,
What
look,
are we doing
it is
wrong?
interesting. I think you and I are both in a situation. You not as much as me, but I got to say, is for the male ego, like to be married to someone who's very successful and works a lot, and having to take a role that's maybe unconventional in the male female dynamic. Like my wife makes more money than me, and that's that. Like, so I know if one of us has to stop working to do, it's logically it would be me. And that's an interesting, I think ultimately I'm really grateful that it's that way because I can't rest on my laurels. I can't be the dad's like, well, I'm paying for all this shit and that's why there's food on the table. So I'm going golfing. That's not happening in my house.
I am 50-50 income family, 50-50 parenting family. And I still get away. I probably, like for me to say I'm truly 50-50 would do a disservice to my wife. It's probably 60-40, but
and probably mine is too. What do I know? It feels like 50-50.
But theoretically I'm 50-50.
Yes.
But it's so.
But couldn't you see yourself taking advantage a little bit if your wife did nothing? Don't you feel like you could imagine? I can imagine myself going, well, I can't get up. I can't get up because I got to fucking pay for all this shit, right?
Yes, I can totally.
I can't say that.
I can't say that either.
No, I don't have that card. I would be like, fucking quit. We'll be fine. Your wife could say, then quit because we'll be fine.
Yep.
Yeah. You could all live on her.
Yes.
shit.
And we can't. So we can't. And so we don't. But it's actually like, it's a weird. It's at first it's slightly demasculating in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like
you got to wrestle with it. Like you got to put some time into thinking about it.
It's not proactively emasculating, but it is in a way because you have a frame of reference of malehood that is your father, and my father worked. My mom worked too, but my dad worked and
he was probably making the most amount of money.
Yeah, for a period of time, for sure.
Yeah.
And I remember when my parents actually flipped to where they were both working, and my mom, I think, was making more than my dad, but I don't think the shift happened.
And then they got divorced because of it.
Yeah.
Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
Oh,
if
wow.
it was because of it, but I think that
Sure,
there
it
was
played a role.
Probably did. But there's a weird thing that you go, I don't have a male figure that I know and look up to that took on this role.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
inventing,
you're right.
I'm inventing the role
Mhm.
as I go, and rolling around in the Bjorn and getting confident with
Yeah,
a kid
yeah.
on your chest
Yes.
is a different deal. And but I think,
Well, or Kristen regularly has to go like, get them out of my space. I'm doing an interview. Like I'm in that position that I only know from 50s housewives on TV where I've got to keep them away from mom so she can work sometimes.
I roll back, I go back to Iowa and we were just back for Christmas, and I have a couple of my cousins who have the traditional
Sure.
game
Yeah,
going, and a couple of my cousins where the guy's actually taking a different active role. And so I think it's generational, and I think it's only going to become increasingly generational.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But it's definitely, we don't have a role model for this.
That's true.
And so
Yeah, there was either the deadbeat dad or the other.
Yeah.
There was no.
And so learning on the fly, the 50-50 household responsibility thing is it's a real thing.
Yeah, and I can when I'm in self-pity mode, it's very mal. It's like, this is bullshit. I should be fucking golfing. And
Well, especially when we got these asshole friends that are golfing, we're like, why am I not golfing?
Yes, yes.
I'm about to ask permission to go
Yeah.
fishing.
Yeah, and it's all so for me intertwined with just money. Like, this occupies this huge space in my brain that's preposterous because either one of us is making plenty enough money for a family of four.
Sure.
Yet we need more. We need, whatever. Again, I move the goalpost every fucking time. I need X amount, and it's preposterous. And I'm only putting myself through all this because I keep moving the goalpost. It's
Yeah,
very human.
being in a family with two largely ambitious people is a constant negotiation.
Yeah.
And it's this weird. I went to a therapist once, and I was talking about a relationship, and
Like on accident, like you thought you were walking into.
no, I was somebody.
Teasing.
I got asked to go see a therapist with someone, and it was a relationship therapist, and
Yeah.
and there was a weird thing that the therapist said, like that he laid it out, and he was like, "Listen, that person that you're with is your number one, and
Right.
so if they're not okay with you doing something, then it's not okay."
Mm.
Or if they're, and so it was this, he phrased it much better than that, in so much as that checking in and making sure that they're okay that you go do whatever it is that
Yeah.
you're going to do is actually as important as anything that you're going to do, and vice versa.
Yes.
But checking something off with somebody
It feels emasculating.
in a weird way,
Yeah.
because I think
Well, we're
it's,
stuck with some pretty outdated conventions. That's just tough shit.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so you learn it, and you get really comfortable with it, and then you start.
And you're from
so
Iowa, and
just-
I'm from Michigan, and I'm from a blue collar area of Michigan. And I think you and I've noticed we both have some we have some strong masculinity things.
yeah.
Like where I grew up, like if you drove a fucking pickup truck with 44-inch mutters, you were crushing.
Yes,
and that's
exactly.
really what you need to do. And you needed to lay a dude out behind Kmart.
You needed a lift kit on that son of a bitch.
Those were the things.
If you hadn't been in a fight and won,
Yes.
that was probably no.
you needed to
bueno.
keep fighting until you won one.
That was it.
Yeah. So I still have not shaken a lot of my like archaic kind of masculine, the way I define whether I'm succeeding as a human is still way too masculine.
I found that playing a hyper masculine character
that helps.
helps because I get it all out.
Uh-huh.
Like I'm, like cracking a beer at like
Yeah,
noon.
sure.
Just on the show, just really plays into like get it out on the screen and
Yeah.
then come home and then actually
and then be a patsy. Well, when I was directing,
be modern. Let's
Yeah.
call it modern.
When I was
Modern
directing
masculine.
Chips, you're in a situation where when you're the director, your opinion is the number one opinion ultimately.
Yep.
Like you're going to decide if you like that edit or you're going to decide if you like these costumes, whatever it is. And I remember while I was editing Chips, so that took 7 months, I would be driving home from Warner Brothers and I'd have this fucking conversation with myself every drive home, which is you're going to walk in the door and you're not the director of this house. And your opinion is not more valuable than anyone else's. And that's how it is. And you better get your head straight before you walk in the door because you can be insufferable to live with. If you're used to, you have this persona during the day then you come home and you got to really shift gears.
Yeah.
Or I had to shift gears. Maybe.
Well, I'm on the show. I'm the executive producer of the show, and
your opinion counts.
When I sit in my staff meetings for my investment fund, I'm the general partner. I am the last line of defense for a yes or no on an bet. Everybody's
you have veto power.
I'm being briefed and getting information and then making decisions based on the collective briefing, and there is a, collective decision making process, but at the end of the day, the buck stops. You can veto anything, right?
Yeah.
And so there is a full blown gear shift. And by the way, my wife has the same thing. Like when she's on a movie set, she's the star of the movie, right? And and she runs her own production company. And so when she's running her production company, she's key man number one in the production company.
Yeah.
And while everybody has a say, and so we both come home and we're
a couple alphas.
And we're both alpha.
A couple of Brahma bowls
and
ready to talk about where we should eat dinner.
And we alpha out on each other. And sometimes it'll just be like, or we're both so tired of making decisions that we want the other person to make the decision. You ever do the where are we going to eat dance?
Yeah, that's a rough one. That's nightly. It's
what do you want to eat
for us? Yeah.
I don't care.
She likes to cook, and I like to order out. I have all these like vestigial. Like growing up, we never ate out. We didn't go to restaurants, so it's like
Red Lobster on a celebrated night.
Yeah, in fact, we went to Red Lobster 2 times growing up, and it was both times my mom had left whatever stepdad we had, and we would like go to the Sheraton Hotel and go to Red Lobster, and I was like, oh, okay, we're leaving Rick's house. I see what's going on. So I still have in my head, I have like. To me, the definition of success is like you can eat wherever the fuck you want. And so I still feel like that.
Why would we cook?
There's all these restaurants and we can afford it. This is great.
So I finally explained, I was building furniture at our house. We ordered a bunch of furniture online and I had to build it all over the holiday. And I had to explain to me, I was like, you know how you like to cook? Like how that's actually a thing for you where you enjoy doing that? Yeah. I like putting stuff together.
Yeah.
So this is my version of cooking, and you get to sit in that chair. I get to eat your food. Yeah. You get to sit in this chair when I'm done, and you can hang out on this picnic table and be super stoked. Yeah. And so we had this like great, 5 years in, like it was like a sort of like mea culpa on the like building stuff.
Yes, we have that. Like I'm and I'll bring it up all the time. Well, I'm managing the cars. Like you don't ever think about whether that thing's had an oil change or whatever. That's on me. You go ahead, and I do that once every 3 months. So you go ahead and cook every night. Yeah, exactly. And we're square.
It's great. But I totally agree with you. Like 2 things. It was staying in hotels that had swimming pools.
Yes.
That was a very big, that was a celebration. Mm-hmm. Going to a restaurant or even McDonald's.
Oh, yeah.
Was like big time. And so now anytime where you can, you're like, ooh, let's put it up.
Every time I order a pizza, I think I've made it. I really do. I'm like, I'll fucking put ham on it. I'll put pepperoni. I'm not even worried about what that is.
And the other one for me is ice cream. Ice cream is so in that village camp. Like going to Dairy Queen when I was a kid was the real. Warren Buffett bought Dairy Queen because he loved it so much. And it was going out of it. I'm upset, and there's nary a Dairy Queen around here.
No,
but I am obsessed with ice cream because that was like a privileged experience, and so now I'll eat ice cream virtually every night.
I think 90% of the stuff I'm doing in life is really, I'm still trying to medicate whatever thing I wanted as an 8-year-old, like I have all these cars because I didn't have a GT bike and that's what I really wanted. Yeah. It's ridiculous. And I never can
with the handlebars that spun all the way around.
Oh yeah.
Because it had the rotor on it. Yeah. Freestyle. Yeah. And pegs on the back.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did you had a mongoose? Me too. Yeah, I had a super goose. Kids had Haros and they had hutches and all this stuff.
Those Haros were so badass.
Yeah, they really were.
Oh my god,
all white and red.
They came.
You know Andrew Panay. So this producer Andrew Panay, who's one of my best friends. I walk into his garage like a year ago, and the garage door opens, and I'm about to enter his house, and he has a fucking brand new chrome GT BMX bike. What? And I go, "What is going on with this bike?" He goes, "Bud, I know, right? I saw it in a window." I was like, that was the bike I wanted.
That's the one.
And we sat there. I go, "Are you going to ride it?" He goes, "No." And I'm like, and we just sat there staring at this chrome bike.
You didn't like jump on the pegs and like try to do some like
we stared at it like it was the fucking Shroud of Turin. I couldn't believe like what I was looking at. It was as if it had been lit by a 10K. It just looked so beautiful. And I thought, I gotta go when I go home. I gotta order one of these bikes just to stare at in my garage, not even to ride.
Ugh, it's just the best. I'm still, yeah.
Now,
He who dies with the most toys wins.
the last thing I want to ask you about is because you have kids and I have kids, it's almost like for me, you can't help but kind of go back through your own childhood because you have these kids and I am constantly comparing like what their experience is to what mine was. Like I'm always worried. I'm like, Jesus Christ, they live in a house with a swimming pool. They're from Hollywood. What does that mean? Like I have a hard time wrapping my head around all that stuff. But then I'll think about parenting and like how much time I was getting and how hard my mom worked and unavailable and all these things. And I was thinking about your story and I was thinking, I have to imagine, because you have a twin brother,
Yep.
Michael.
Yep.
And he had
And an older sister.
And he had medical conditions when you were a kid. And I have to imagine that had to have taken up a ton of the time, attention, and resources growing up.
Yep.
Did it?
Yeah. So
And then I can imagine also feeling super fucking guilty at the same time.
My brother was born with mild cerebral palsy.
Right.
And so it was always
And
taken up.
cardiomyopathy.
Yeah, he had a cardiomyopathy when he was 12 and then had a heart transplant. And it was, yeah, he took up a ton of energy because of that.
Yeah.
In very early, which is probably before I could kind of record it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he went through it, when he had the heart transplant, that was like, and it was right after my parents got a divorce. And so it was like right around the same time. And so there was definitely a ton of energy that was going his way relative to that.
Yeah.
And I think it did two things.
And did you feel guilty that here you guys are twins and he's going through all this stuff and you're not? Or were you just like,
when
fuck
I was
this,
when I was a kid, I didn't know, right?
Yeah.
I just had my best friend that was with me and I didn't even really recognize that he had anything less than I had when I was a kid. And then it wasn't until we started like playing basketball and things like that. And I would kind of always win.
Right.
And it was like this sort of litmus of, and then I became extremely defensive of him to protect him. Like, so he would get in a fight.
Because you entered school together, right?
Yeah. So we were in the same grade, the same way, the whole way, in the same
I feel
class.
like that's a ton of pressure.
And so we had like, when he, like, I remember in junior high, like he was like started problems with the wrong kid and the kid like came after him after school and was going to fight him. And I knew that if he fought him, like if he did hit him anywhere near his chest, like it would blow open because he was, and I was like, all right, I got to fight this kid for it. It was like that kind of, and that was my mentality. But there was also, I think the most significant thing that happened is when I was like 23 or 4. And he said to me, every time that you feel sorry for me, you make me less. And he said, the only life I've ever known is this one. And so don't make it less than mine.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, like it was a massive wake up call because my whole life I realized at that moment that I felt bad.
Yeah.
And felt sorry and guilty in my whole life for the fact that my brother was going through this and I wasn't.
Yeah.
And so it flipped a switch for me relative to not just my brother, but to everyone.
All these people you were maybe.
No, to everyone, right? So any like if I see a homeless person on the side of the road, feeling sorry for that person makes them less and in their life. Like I can have compassion and I can have care, but it's compassion and care is very different than feeling sorry for
pity.
Someone. In a sense, feeling sorry for someone is a nice way of saying pity. Right?
It is, yeah. I have these debates with Kristen.
And it was a weird shift in the way that I see the world and see people. And at the same time, I had this like, because we were kind of lower middle class, I had this weird, growing up, this like rich people were in some ways evil.
Yeah.
Right?
Me too.
Like,
I have a huge class warfare thing.
Yeah.
I can't shake.
I had this issue with rich people.
Yeah, me too.
And so then they
were the ones looking down on us.
Yeah, as if it was this
yeah,
like
they weren't,
looking.
but I felt like they were.
You felt like it was, and now that I have some wealth, it shifted a perspective there as well, where I'm not. I don't look down on anyone. I'm like, this is amazing, right? Wherever and whoever's life is whatever. Whatever.
If I think I'm better than you, it certainly has nothing to do with how much money I have.
Ever.
Yeah.
And so there's this there's a level of empathy that I think I developed as a person because of the situation my brother had and the obstacles that he faced that I didn't. And now a level of respect that I have that's relative to it. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I realized from a very young age from having a twin that everything in my life is to be shared. And that it's better when it's shared. And so that was another like just functional sort of thing that I've drawn from it. And so it like probably, yeah, it's certainly like one of the most impactful things in my life. And relative to my kids, I was actually thinking about this just a couple of weeks ago. It was like the trauma of my brother's heart transplant was so influential to my life and so influential to who I am as a person. I wonder what their trauma will be. Yeah.
Because I was just going to say, I have to imagine that your desire for attention, or certainly my desire for attention, was middle child, way overextended mother. Like I didn't get it. I needed it. And I've been on a endless pursuit for attention ever since. And I have to imagine that you are on a similar journey.
I did a play in junior high and people laughed. And people applauded when I did something. Yeah. And I was like, what? Yeah. Like,
they actually looked at you uninterrupted for probably a half hour, which was probably foreign.
Just like that, just having that undivided attention that was just yours was like, whoa.
A drug,
like
right?
It was like, a super drug for sure, because it didn't matter. Same thing with sports, like playing football, like having that undivided, like it was, there was a power in that.
Yeah. Feels good. But I agree. I think what on earth's going to be the engine for my kids? I certainly don't want them to, I could have done without having to come to all these conclusions. There were a lot of years where I was super fucked up because I didn't understand those things. And I certainly don't want those aspects, but I do wonder what on earth is going to motivate these two.
Yeah. And how, and are you going to protect them in that moment, or are you going to let them experience it so they have an understanding of it?
And some coping skills.
Yeah. Like my kids are living in a really privileged life, like unbelievably privileged life. And they don't even know it.
Yeah.
And they'll never know it because this will be the only one that they know.
Well,
right?
I don't know about you, but I spent so much time worrying about, oh my God, what is it going to be like for them to grow up with famous parents, with people stopping us out and about? And I became so protective of this and so off-putting to people when we're out in public, And at a certain point recently, it occurred to me, they don't know another life. They think everyone's parents are famous. This is just life on planet Earth for them. They don't feel like some compromise has happened or whatever. It's just their fucking life. It's not nearly what I was fearful it was going to be. It's just a matter of fact.
Yeah. So whenever we're with our kids, and people ask us to take a picture, I always say we don't take pictures when we're with our kids.
That's what we say too.
And so now
unless you ask, then we would.
Now my daughter goes, no, we don't take pictures. Like now she says that, which is really weird as well.
Yes.
It's going to be weird.
You can't win because here's my
struggle
theory.
for them is going to be camping, right? Like I'm going to take them camping a lot, just because I want them to be really resourceful. Yeah, and I want to teach them how to be resourceful because as long as they know how to do when they don't have things, they know how to be resourceful. Then it come the circumstance, because my kids are not getting like big. I'm not setting up a trust for them. We'll end up giving our money away to charity and to various things and Dax.
My off-road fund.
And so our kids, if my kids want to start a business and they have a good business plan, I'll invest in it. Yeah. But they're not getting trust. They're not going to get. So hopefully they'll be motivated to have what they had. Yeah. Or some version of what they had.
Or conversely, what might be very liberating and cool is that they had all this shit you and I coveted and needed.
And they didn't give a shit about it.
And it wasn't that fun.
Happy.
Yeah,
they'll be really happy having
because
them.
I don't know. The 10 years I had the 1-bedroom apartment in Santa Monica, they were great. They were a fucking blast. I was in love with Bree. We had friends. Everything was fine.
I would much rather have this problem than the converse problem.
Yes.
Because my biggest fear in the world right now is that we grew up in an age of the potential upward mobility.
Mm-hmm.
And we had that was given to us by our surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm becoming increasingly fearful that the next generation isn't going to have the opportunity to upward mobility that we had.
Yeah.
Based on a lot of social dynamics.
Well, there's even an article, I saw an article last week that was like, should you even send your kids to medical school? Because AI is going to be doing 90% of the medical work by the time our kids would graduate from medical school,
right.
Which is crazy.
Well, I had this, I was going to hook my Echo up to my coffee pot.
Uh-huh.
And then I thought about this morning. I was going downstairs and I was like, I usually walk in, I tell the Echo to turn the lights on, and then it's pretty fairly automated. And then I ask, for my daily briefing, and then I have this sort of routine with the robot. And I was gonna hook the robot up to the coffee pot so that when I walk down and I asked to turn the lights on, I would say good morning, and then it would just start brewing my coffee if I set up the night before. And what I realized as I thought about doing this morning was, what would I do in the morning?
Yeah.
If I'm not even, it's part,
you just rendered yourself obsolete.
And I thought, like, what would I do?
Yeah.
If my first thing I did in the morning wasn't making coffee, like what would I do?
Yeah.
I think they're going to have this, what do I do problem.
Well, Sam Harris had this guy Yovel on who wrote Homo Deus and Homo Sapien.
Fantastic books.
Yeah, they're so great. And
Wonderful.
and Yovel says that we will very soon, 90% of the people will be unemployed. It'll be called the useless class because AI and robotics will be doing everything. And people will get a stipend from the government, and that's what they'll live on. That's all fine and dandy. My thought is, oh shit, our kids are going to live through the transition to that where you have 30% unemployment. It's fine if we have 90% unemployment and everything's being done for us and you get a stipend. But when there's 30% unemployment, that's like fucking Civil War time that our kids are going to live through.
So I think about 7 years ago, I heard for the first time, I don't remember who said it. Somebody said, in the future, people are either going to have jobs where they tell robots what to do, or they're being told what to do by robots. Which job do you want? Somebody said, and it's stuck with me, and I repeated it 1,000 times as if it's my own. Yeah. And I truly believe it. I don't think it's that far off. Like, there's a bummer with autonomous vehicles, a wonderful thing where like people don't die driving. A bummer because driving's really liberating.
The humongous industries based around driving is.
And these jobs are gone. So raising kids that have the capacity to socially relate with others really, really well and empathize and have like all of the sort of soft skills like just nailed, I think is a key component to that. Like just like crushing on soft skills like all day long.
Yeah.
And then learning how to code so they can have a job telling a computer what to do.
Right.
I think that's key.
Yeah.
Like I've like started at my daughter's 3 and I've started explaining things.
I feel like we'll still have entertainers. That's what I'm holding out for.
Yes, because people will have a lot of spare time.
Yeah,
and so they'll need to be
you gotta have sex with someone when you go into your VR world.
Well, didn't you hear about this robot that you can now have sex with a robot?
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a robot that people can have sex with.
Oh, I would love to.
My argument was that it would probably be much better with VR and a haptic than actually having sex with a robot. But the question that was at the table, this is our New Year's conversation, was, is it cheating if you have sex with a robot, or is that just masturbation?
No. Yeah, it's masturbation. Kristen can have a fucking robot boyfriend. That's so easy for me to answer.
You've just so simply qualified it for yourself.
I could hardly care. Anyways, I thank you so much for coming. I have throughout the 14 years we've known each other, whenever I get a chance to talk to people about you, I always say, whatever your opinion of this guy is, I've met a lot of people in my life. Never met someone that works harder. It's a super, super admirable quality you have. And
Thanks.
I believe you deserve everything you have.
Oh, thanks.
And I love you and thank you for giving me everything I have.
I love you. Thank you for asking me to be one of your early guests on your show because I know it's going to be ridiculously successful. So,
Thank you.
can I be your first guest?
Yeah, absolutely.
So are you going to have to like?
I might release 3 at a time.
Oh, okay. I want to be like an inaugural.
Oh yeah.
Like the space shuttle thing.
Well, I think you're a bit of good luck because you were like an inaugural Twitter user and all these other things.
No,
I think you're like a harbinger of good things.
I wasn't first.
No, but you were like first to 1 million, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Don't fake it like you weren't.
Yes.
You crushed it.
BCNN.
BCNN.
Had a bunch of Czech kids in the Czech Republic hacking for me.
All right.
I hacked it like the Russians did our election. Okay. Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay tuned if you'd like to hear my good friend and producer Monica Padman point out the many errors in the podcast you just heard. Monica.
Hi.
You've listened to Ashton and I.
Yes.
And how'd it go?
Pretty good. There was not a lot to fact check.
Oh, that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
I would have thought with 2 know-it-alls of he and I's stature that there would have been a ton of facts being rattled off.
Yeah, some.
When we speak off the record, we're just trying to wow each other with numbers that are totally
bogus,
unsubstantiated.
You talked a little bit about Scientology's perspective on drugs.
Okay.
And I have what Scientology.org says about drugs.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay, I'm going to read it. Scientologists do use prescribed medical drugs when physically ill and also rely on the advice and treatment of medical doctors. Scientologists do not take street drugs or mind-altering psychotropic drugs.
Oh, yes, psychotropics.
They consider drugs cause extremely damaging effects on a person physically, mentally, and spiritually, specifically that drugs decrease awareness and hinder abilities. They are a, quote, solution to some other problem, but ultimately prove an even bigger problem. That's straight from the Scientology's mouth.
Straight from the source.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think I had claimed that that drugs make your environment dangerous.
You did. That's exactly what you did. And then he had mentioned some fat.
Again, I would have to find the thing, but they do give kids like a little book on hygiene. I've seen it. Mm-hmm. And there is kind of a generalized, like, be cognizant of your environment vibe.
Sure.
Which I dig.
Well, they have a lot of people. I'm sure they have a lot of naysayers they encounter in their life. So they do have to sort of be conscious of their environment and who they're putting in and what's around them.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. And who's a suppressive person, an SP.
Yeah, an SP.
Yeah. I'm friends with a ton of Scientologists, and I'm always nervous they're going to label me an SP and we can't be friends anymore. But thus far, it hasn't happened.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you have to do?
Well, I did ask a guy who had left the church, and I said, am I dancing on razor blades if I want to? Like, because I'm just curious, right? So we'll be in the car, and like I was on a road trip with Erica Christensen, who's very vocally and openly a Scientologist, and now, I'll just start kind of asking her, like, why is it that you don't have access to all the literature or scripture? Like, the Bible's the Bible. They give it to any Christian. Here it is. There's no, you don't have to obtain a certain level to then get
withholding.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then further, I was curious, and this is my issue with Catholicism is everyone's working off this document, the Bible. And how on earth does the priest have more info than anyone else? The only info to have is in this one book. So this dude is like, it would be as if you were in a book club and one guy knew more about Ketra and the Rye than anyone else. I just don't buy that. You all have the same book. You can read it. There can't be an authority on it as long as you can read.
Yep.
And I was kind of, challenging that. But in doing that, I started getting nervous because I love and adore Erica, and I certainly don't want to step over a line and get labeled an SP. So I asked this guy who had left the church, and he basically told me, whether he's right or wrong, the only people that are really run a risk of being labeled an SP are people who are in the church, then leave, then start proselytizing against it.
Got it.
Again, this would require yet another fact check round, but here we are.
Fact check part 2.
This could be an endless thing, right? It could be just a vortex of, okay.
Okay, so then you mentioned a story. You talked about a story where Danny Masterson was under the influence while driving you.
Okay. From my perspective.
From your perspective.
Yeah.
I
mean, I'd seen him
let's
have
clarify.
cocktails and then we got in a car. That seems pretty conclusive.
That's
but
not really your perspective. That's just the truth,
Yeah.
probably.
He may see it differently.
So then we talked. So then you mentioned the statute of limitations. So I looked up what the statute of limitations is.
For drunk driving.
Mm-hmm. Criminal DUI offenses. The statute of limitations for a misdemeanor DUI is generally 18 months from the date of offense.
Oh.
And the statute of limitations for a felony DUI is generally 3 years from.
Oh, so either
The date
or.
of offense.
Either way, he is so in the clear.
He's fine.
Yeah, okay.
You can talk about it all you want.
Oh, good. I feel far less morally.
Incriminating.
Yeah, just less perplexed.
Okay. And then this isn't a fact check, but I just wanted to say, because Ashton refers to a book, The Gene.
Oh, uh-huh.
And I just wanted to say that that's written by Siddhartha Mukherjee. I'm probably saying that wrong.
We've heard him on
Sam Harris.
Sam Harris. Yeah, he's
Exactly.
kind of like the godfather of cancer research currently.
Yeah. He
Oh,
is.
I wish I would have realized that when we were talking, because we
Mhm.
both heard Siddhartha talk quite extensively on that topic.
Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to say that in case anyone wanted to buy it
And read
purchase
it and support.
I did a little reading on it, and it looks good
Yeah.
and interesting.
Well, if you've written a book that's good enough to get you invited onto Sam Harris's podcasts, you're probably
doing something right.
Yeah, you're saying something pretty smart.
Yeah, probably. Okay, and then you talked about Tom Arnold dating in his late life, having
A CPAC machine?
yes.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to clarify what that was in case people didn't know what that was.
Oh, okay.
CPAP machine.
CPAP.
CPAP.
Oh, and I'm saying CPAC.
I wondered if you were saying that if I've
Yeah.
heard it wrong.
Well,
or
you've known me now for years. I mispronounce almost everything. Yeah.
we all do.
Yeah. No,
That's why
you
I'm
have
here.
really good diction.
Well.
Yeah. As does Belle. Belle she says every word almost exactly as intended in the Webster Dictionary.
Yeah.
But this is to treat sleep apnea, right?
Yes.
Am I saying that correctly?
Yes. Yep.
This is to treat sleep apnea.
Yeah, it's to treat sleep apnea, and it stands for continuous positive airway pressure machine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it provides some.
And it's a cumbersome unit because my father had one, and it is
it's large.
It is. I'm sure they're getting smaller
And I
and
think
smaller.
it's very loud.
It's loud, and if you are a man of means and can afford the Rolls Royce of CPAPs, they have ones that also put moisture in there. They're kind of like a humidifier, so then that's yet another
Layer.
engine and
Yeah.
and holding tank and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yum.
What would be your reaction if you hooked up with a guy and then you invited him to spend the night, and then he said, "Let me just grab something out of my trunk," and then he brought in? Would you find it endearing?
Yeah,
and cute?
I would.
Yeah,
I would.
Yeah, because you're a good person.
I'm okay,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would find that cute.
It is pretty cute. It's a pretty vulnerable move.
My room's small though.
I
so
would
I don't know if
rather
it would
die
fit.
in my sleep. I would rather stop breathing in my sleep on a first date than bring my CPAP machine out.
Or maybe you just don't sleep that night
You just stay
up.
up all night long,
Yeah.
staring at her. That would
for the first
that would make
2
her
or
feel
3
safe.
months. Yeah. Okay. So you guys also talked about the Happiest Baby on the Block book.
Uh-huh.
And you discussed the 5 S's, and no one could remember the last S.
Wait, can I try it again now that we're not there?
Say them all 5 of them.
Okay. Sucking, swaddling, swaying, shushing, and sucking, swaddling, swaying, shushing. Fuck, I don't know. What is it?
Okay. Swaddle, side stomach position.
Oh,
That's the missing one.
I totally forgot that.
Shushing, swinging, sucking.
Okay, great.
Now you know. Know that you're not going to have any more children.
Also could be applied on a first date.
Hmm.
Harvey Karp? Is that
Interesting.
his name?
Yeah.
Dr. Harvey Karp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Try it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I wanted to talk a little bit about the hair procedure that you and Ashton both did.
Okay, great.
I found a little information
that
on
we
that.
don't. Well, even I asked that doctor, "What the fuck are you injecting into my scalp?"
Uh-huh.
And he wouldn't tell me.
Yeah.
It was a proprietary situation. He didn't want
Oh.
the secret serum to be known.
Because I think you labeled it a chicken egg serum on the podcast.
What does that even mean?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
You tell me. So I have a question. When you went, did they draw your blood?
No.
Oh, so this must be an advanced version that I looked up.
Again, I think I was pretty clear. I think it was probably hocus pocus.
No, this is a real thing.
Oh,
I found a
okay.
lot of information on it, actually.
Okay.
It's called PRP, platelet-rich plasma. Does that sound right?
That sounds way more high tech than what
So
I
maybe
think
they
I was
just
getting.
evolved since maybe you were an early adopter.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. But it's a stem cell treatment.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, now I'm excited that I should look into that because that sounds legit.
Yeah. They draw blood.
They
And then
spin it.
They put it through a centrifuge separation process.
Uh-huh.
And then you get this plasma.
Mm-hmm.
And then they apply that plasma to the scalp. And yeah, they use like a.
Oh, PRP. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have had that on my wrist.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you've had it on your head.
Ricky Glassman's a big proponent of it for his knees from playing basketball. And he recommended it might be beneficial for my wrist because of my arthritis. And it wasn't for me, which is not to say it wouldn't be for you.
Mm.
Yeah. PRP.
Interesting. And did it stab you? Did they use like a little machine with
They drew a
needles?
bunch of blood,
Uh-huh.
and then they put it in a centrifuge, and then I guess we had plasma, and then he also put some stem cells in there too that he had gotten, and and then just kind of sprayed it all over my joint. You know,
Oh, we made it into a paste.
no. It was in a syringe.
Oh, okay.
But it was
okay.
far less than what I had donated blood wise.
Uh-huh.
And then he got into those joints with a very long needle and was just, to me, haphazardly squirting that plasma all in the joint.
Sure.
And while it was happening, I was like, I don't know. Well, maybe.
And then turns out.
I'm just generally a little skeptical. I will try everything, but I'm skeptical while I'm doing it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's, I think, what was happening to you.
It wasn't because I didn't draw. I never gave blood.
Well, maybe they used something else because they didn't have
I think
blood at
this
that time.
guy was, well, if they used blood, he was probably like voodoo style, cutting a chicken's neck in the back.
See,
And-
this is where the chicken, this is where your chicken idea comes from.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you read an article that talked about how we don't even really need to send kids to medical school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And was that in the New York Times? I found an article that was that exact thing, and I think maybe it was that.
It was in Yovel's book, Homo Deus, the guy who wrote.
No, I know. You talked about that, but then you said you also read an article recently that had mentioned like we don't even need to really send our kids to medical school anymore because like robots
AI
will be
is going to
doing
be
it.
doing all
Mhm.
the diagnostic work and stuff.
You did.
Well,
This was a
I thought I was referencing the article about the psychiatrist, but that was in something else. Anyways, maybe I was just
Maybe-
lying. I
maybe
don't
you were
remember
lying.
reading an article. I think it's really from reading Homo Deus that I have that.
Okay, well, there
opinion.
is
because
an
he talks
article.
about Big Blue, not Big Blue, the new IBM computer that's replaced Big Blue. It has a cute name. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Oh, well, IBM's got an AI computer that has a cute name, and
Mm.
there was even a 60 Minutes on this. They gave it to these oncologists, and they started going through all these files in very rapid fashion, and then the computer started spitting out diagnoses. Okay, again, this will be totally off, but it was like 80%, let's just say.
Okay.
And then they said that the rate of accuracy of oncologists is 50%. So already the IBM computer is vastly more. Is that what the article you found says?
Yeah, it's called "Will Robots Take Our Children's Jobs?"
Mm.
And it was in the New York Times. It's by a man named Alex Williams, who
Suspiciously.
is married to this blogger that I follow.
Uh-huh.
And it's interesting because I only knew that I started reading the article and he mentions his kids' names at the top of the article.
Okay.
And then I just put two and two together
Oh.
that is those, he must be married to this woman.
Who's the woman? Why don't you plug her?
It's called Cup of Joe is the blog.
Okay, so her name's
and her
Joe.
name's Joe.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but I got kind of weirded out when that happened because I was like, oh my God, I just put all this information. I know about these people and I
Right.
don't
Yeah.
really, but it's like there's a weird thing. There's a weird
A little bit of
disconnect
voyeur.
there. Yeah. Or
Yeah.
I feel like I know too much about something I shouldn't know.
Right.
Anyway, that made me feel weird.
And did he
but-
say medical was one of the top ones that?
Yeah, it says, people want to make, encourage their kids to become radiologists. That's a very good job. You make a lot of money doing that. Wait, is it Arteries that is the robot you were talking about?
No.
Okay.
It has a very anthropomorphized name.
Oh.
Is that the right word? Anthropomorphic? Anthropomorphized.
Yeah, it's like Haley.
Yeah, gal.
Yeah.
Mikey.
I
Mikey,
hope
the
it's
new
Mikey.
IBM supercomputer.
Mikey's cute.
God damn it. What is the name of that supercomputer?
But yeah, there's a startup called Arteries, which is just one example that has a program that can do all this MRI in 15 seconds compared to 45 minutes that a human takes. So, and same with surgeons, and it's just saying that these jobs are going to become obsolete.
Yeah.
Obsolete.
So please don't send you. Watson's its name. I just looked it up on my phone. I cheated. Yeah.
That's
Watson.
cute.
It's cute, right?
Yeah, I like that.
I'm assuming that's a reference to Sherlock Holmes. Yeah.
That
Watson
would be
had a lot
my
of
guess.
info. What else do we have?
Okay,
Monica?
so then you also said Yuval Harari's book.
By the way, as I explore deeper into Watson, it's not named after Watson from whatever we just
Sherlock
said.
Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes. It's named after IBM's first CEO, industrialist Thomas J. Watson.
Oh.
And well, no, I was going to say maybe he was named after him, but no, that's a last name. Okay, continue. Sorry, I really derailed your. Yeah,
That's not as cute.
it is certainly not.
No.
Okay.
Yuval Harari's book.
Oh yeah.
You called it Homo sapiens, and the book is just called Sapiens.
Oh, okay, good. That's great to know for
Yeah.
people who might want to order it. It's a great book.
Very good.
Yeah.
He's also on Sam Harris's podcast.
He is.
We're really here to promote Sam Harris's podcast.
We're trying to do the layman's version.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But that episode is called Reality and the Imagination, if anyone's interested
Oh yeah, and checking
in
that
heading
out.
over to Sam Harris's Waking Up with Sam
Very
Harris.
fascinating. Yeah, yeah. Especially when he gets into what we will do in the future when 90% of the population is unemployed.
Correct.
That part was really fascinating.
Okay, last thing.
Yep.
You guys discussed robots, sexual intercourse with robots.
Uh-huh.
And I found some information.
Okay, great.
Some interesting information. I'm just going to read this, okay?
Okay.
This is from NBC News.
Okay. This is unabridged.
.com.
You haven't done any editing. This
No.
is going to be straight. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
This is
No paraphrasing.
nope.
Yeah.
Okay, it says it'll be a while before these robots really look or act like people, but the sex toy industry, worth billions of dollars globally, is primed for penetration by robots. One of the early entries into this market is an animatronic head named Harmony, another interesting, cute name,
Mm-hmm.
that's infused with artificial intelligence to give it a personality and the ability to learn about its human partner.
Oh boy.
Harmony will connect to the silicone body of a real doll, a life-size sex doll that's been around for 20 years.
A flesh bot?
Uh-huh. The first sex robots won't be able to caress, grab, or thrust against their human lovers, but more intelligent, more mobile, and more realistic robots will soon become available.
Let me just say that when those things are available and they're affordable, I will 100% do it. Mostly to see, to confirm my suspicion that I'm really only interested in sex insofar as that I'm being desired. I think that's the big appeal for
Sure,
me. It
yeah.
seems it's clearly when you read these sexual harassment details that some guys are getting off on much different things.
Power.
Than me. Yeah.
That's different. Yeah.
But I am only in it for like approval
Yeah.
and desirability. So I'm just trying to imagine if it would be ego inflating to have a robot desire you.
Yeah,
It feels
that's
weird.
really
Like
interesting.
if my laptop liked me a ton and when I opened it up, it was like, thank God you're back. I don't feel like
I don't know. I guess it
if
depends on.
they could perfect that, the interface in the AI in a way that it was organically and believably telling you things like, you're the best I've ever had. I
Make you
couldn't
mad.
live without this. Then I think it would be pretty exciting.
I wonder.
And I am very pro people having sex with robots, even when they're married and monogamous.
Even if these robots like know you. See,
Sure,
that's
absolutely.
even still.
Yep. If Kristen had a robot that she fucked, a few times a week, she enjoyed that. I just can't imagine seeing that differently than her getting a deep tissue massage she liked.
Oh, but what if she enjoyed the company of this robot so much that she was like, I'm not going to watch the movie tonight with you because I'm just going to go into the other
Go fuck
bedroom
for a while.
with Harmony.
Well, yeah, and I have a very easy answer for that. If this thing starts taking away from my needs, then that's an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they might.
I think all these things, all these jealousy issues, you're avoiding what the real question is are my needs being met or not? That's
Correct.
pretty much the only thing you're entitled to ask for in a relationship.
Yeah,
so
I
if
agree.
my needs are being met and she's, quietly, without me knowing, fucking this robot 6 times a week, who gives a shit? I don't care.
Yeah, I agree. But I just mean if they get more and more intelligent, they may become more and more
desirable
likely.
as partners.
Yeah.
Well, okay, then that's a much bigger issue. Yeah. And I'm not going to keep her from being super happy with the robot if that's what she, wants.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Next episode,
We'll report
the data
back.
will be in. Well, thank you, Monica, for correcting me.
You're welcome.
I look forward to the next lashing. Welcome to the Armchair Expert. I'm Dax Shepard. Today, I am joined by my TV wife, Joy Bryant. You know her from Parenthood, Get Rich or Die Trying, Antoine Fisher. She's a writer. She's an actress. She's a clothing designer and one of my all-time favorite people to talk to. I think we worked together for almost 7 years on Parenthood, and we never, ever tired of shooting the shit. And as you will hear, our favorite topics are sex and race in no particular order. I credit her with defeating me in numerous debates, and I thank her for her patience while guiding me at a snail's pace towards wokeness. She would hate that I just used that word wokeness. But anyways, please enjoy my good friend, Joy Bryant.
He's an armchair expert.
I don't want to do anything.
He's an
And we
armchair
always,
expert.
We can edit.
we can have a conversation. Eventually, I don't feel comfortable. I'll
Yeah.
be like, I don't want to talk about this shit. Or we can talk and then
100%.
kind of go back and like.
This ain't
slice and dice.
NPR. I'm not trying to...
Oh, this is not NPR? Oh, I
believe
must
it or
be in the
not.
wrong place.
Yeah. My appointment sheet says NPR.
My call sheet says NPR.
Okay, I'm going to start.
Okay.
Joy Bryant, welcome.